So Mendel, do you have your bags all packed?
Yes, I just got home from a baseball game, took a COVID test. I think I'm packed. I'm not sure.
You have to ask your wife.
It's been a crazy afternoon, but yeah, I think everything's good.
What time do you leave tomorrow?
The plane leaves about 12:30.
Oh, okay.
So
You should have a nice time there.
we should. Let's hope.
Mayor, anytime,
Sylvia, are we all here?
ma'am.
Okay, very good. Then I will call this meeting to order at 7 p.m. This is the regular meeting of the Glendora City Council on March 22nd, 2022. Our 6 p.m. closed session meeting tonight was canceled. Tonight's meeting is being conducted utilizing Zoom video communication. This allows the city to conduct essential business while still complying with public health administration recommendations, protecting both the public and city employees. To ensure that the public will be able to participate in our meeting this evening, public comments can be submitted as live comments using the raise hand icon. Also, they can be submitted via email at publiccomments@cityofglendora.org. With that, Madam Deputy City Clerk, will you please conduct the roll call?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. At this time, I would like to conduct an oral roll call and request that each council member respond with present when their name is called. Councilmember Alawas,
Present?
Councilmember Thompson,
Present.
Councilmember Friedendahl,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Boyer,
Present.
and Mayor Davis.
Present.
All council members are present. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Tonight, our invocation will be led by Edie Young. She is a local Christian Scientist elected recently by her branch church, First Church of Christ Scientist Glendora, to serve as second reader. She reads the Bible at Sunday services, and tonight will be leading us in our invocation. And our Pledge of Allegiance tonight will be led by Mayor Pro Tem Gary Boyer. Edie?
Good evening, Mayor Davis, City Council members, staff, visitors, Glendora citizens. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, Mother God, look upon us in our need for wisdom, honesty, and compassion, and open our hearts to your abundant grace. In Matthew's Gospel, Jesus reminds us how spiritual love, understanding, and care are poured out universally on all people everywhere, just like the sunshine shines out equally in space. Nobody is or can be excluded from your gracious, loving presence. In your divine spirit comes strength and inspiration for each of the public servants here in Glendora, including our police and firefighters, all those serving in our hospitals and clinics, our school teachers and staff, the owners and employees of the organizations located here. We pray acknowledging your healing love that encourages and blesses each child, man, and woman in this gracious city. Bless each one of them with good health, progress, and harmonious relationships. Let us feel and know the joy and comfort of your ever-presence. St. Paul, through the great trials of his life experience, wrote in his letter to the Romans that he was convinced that nothing in God's whole world has any power to separate us from the love of God in Christ Jesus our Lord. We now have the opportunity to put that same conviction into practice in this meeting, in our city, in our work, homes, and lives. Heavenly Father, Mother, we acknowledge that your compassion, wisdom, and blessing are present to help us move forward, and we thank you. Amen.
Amen. Please stand if you can and join me in the pledge to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank Thank you, Edie, and thank you, Mr. Boyer. That takes us now to student reports. Tonight, we are very happy to have 3 of our representatives with us this evening. From Glendora High School, Nadia Bashir. And Nadia, welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. My name is Nadia Bashir, and tonight I will be giving a student board report on the behalf of Glendora High School. In February, ASB celebrated Kindness Week by passing out flowers for students on Kindness Day, hosting a treasure hunt with a special prize for the winner at the end of the week, and giving out free kindness grams to students. ASB also decorated the campus with positive affirmations and words of encouragement. And on Valentine's Day, we also sold Valentine's Day grams. For Counselor Appreciation Week, ASB posted every GHS counselor on the ASB Instagram with a thank you and a short paragraph about them. ASB also provided counselors with free donuts and coffee for breakfast, and they also received handwritten letters of thankfulness from students. The senior rally took place last week and featured an exciting hypnotist performance, as well as a reminder to seniors to continue making good choices as our year comes to an end. With our annual action event coming on April 8th, planning is ramping up, and ASB is thrilled to be working with PEP to choreograph class dances, GHS artists to paint murals, and inviting any student to participate in our action games. Our theme was announced last week, and it is Cars themed, so GHS students are super excited to have this super fun in-person event with, I believe, 1,300 students signed up. So we're really looking forward to that. Regarding the athletics and arts, congratulations to boys and girls basketball for making it to CIF. ASB planned the Silent Night game on February 4th, where the boys varsity team beat Claremont High School. And in addition to that, boys finished their season in a tie for second place with Ayala High School and closed off their season during the first round after putting up a great fight. The girls finished third in league and advanced to the second round of CAF before their hard-fought season came to an end. We are so honored to announce that Samantha Sachs took 5th place at CAF Masters in Wrestling, qualifying for state as a freshman. Royal Stewards and Silhouette Show Choirs have competed at 3 show choir competitions so far this season. Congratulations to Silhouettes for winning first place twice in a row in the Women's Intermediate Division, and Royal Stewards for winning second twice, first place, and best musicianship and showmanship in the Advanced Mixed Division. Congratulations to the drama department, director Mr. Stevens and music director Mr. Davis for putting on a spectacular rendition of You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown. Students and staff were elated to watch the production a few weeks ago with tickets completely sold out. The Glendora Orchestra also performed last Friday at the annual Tartan Festival, where they performed songs such as At World's End from the Pirates of the Caribbean. Bandurama took place on March 19th, where the marching band, jazz band, and concert bands performed their sets, along with a performance from pageantry. And congratulations to the Glendora High School Drumline for taking first place in their division at the Colony High School competition a few days ago. The Wellness Center has officially been open in room 14 for students to hang out and relax to relieve stress and get recharged in between classes. Thank you to NAMI Healthy Minds for helping give tours and publicize it for our students. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nadia. From Charter Oak High School, Pollock Tripathi. Pollock.
Mayor, I don't think that she's logged in quite yet, so if we can move on.
Okay, then we'll go to Olivia Risk from St. Lucie Priory High School.
Thank you, Mayor. Once again, my name is Olivia Risk, and I'm the student representative for St. Lucie's Priory High School. The month of March on our campus began with a school-wide Ash Wednesday Mass on the 2nd. A couple days later, on March 4th, the first round of the class of 2026 acceptance letters were sent out. The second round of acceptances were announced this past Friday, the 18th. Congratulations to all of the phenomenal young ladies who were accepted. We can't wait to see you on our campus. Our school community celebrated Alumni Memorial Week from March 7th to the 12th. Penny Wars, a week-long activity, was when each grade level competed to see who could raise the most money for our end-of-the-year scholarships. My junior class and I won again this year for the second time. Many other activities throughout the week were celebrated in the amphitheater. On Tuesday, there was a prayer service, and on Wednesday was our DJ PJ Pizza Lunch. Students could wear their pajamas to school on Wednesday, eat pizza together on the lawn, and end the day dancing and singing with their friends. On Thursday, many of our alum, faculty, and staff shared memories from when they were students at St. Lucy's, and their best pieces of advice with our regents. The week ended with a mother-daughter rally in the gym on Saturday, March 12th. The junior class retreat took place on Monday, March 14th. It was such a beautiful day at our priory, filled with reflection, bonding, and fun. The following Wednesday, the Benedictine leaders put on a Lenten reconciliation service for our students. Priests from nearby parishes so graciously came onto our campus and allowed our students to do the act of contrition. Also, a video was put together where girls from each grade level answered the following question: what does Lent mean to you? In one word. We also had the opportunity of doing 3 different reflection activities. Our spring sports of softball, swim and dive, and track and field have all been training hard and participating in tournaments and meets. Swim and dive participated in the Mount Sac Invitational and various other swim meets. And our track and field team recently participated in the Covina Invitational. Our softball team has additionally competed in multiple home and away games. Our tri-school community's junior and senior class officers came together and chose Night Under the Stars as this year's prom theme. Our magical night will be on Sunday, April 3rd at Disneyland's House of Blues. Additionally, our senior class selected 3 girls to be on the prom court. We are so excited for them to represent our school and wish them the best of luck. Our talent show will be this Thursday, March 24th. Also on Thursday is our last Regent Shadow Day of the school year, open to all 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. To register, we ask that you please visit our website. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Olivia, for being here. Has Paula had a chance to sign in yet?
No, at this point, we don't have her logged in at all. So I've messaged her already, and if anything happens, I'll let you know.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you, Nadia and Olivia. Appreciate you being here. That takes us to reordering of or additions to the agenda. Does anyone wish to reorder or add to the agenda? Okay, hearing none, then that takes us on to public comment. At this time, we invite members of the public to have 3 minutes to speak. You may communicate by using the raise hand icon in Zoom communications. Also, you may submit your public comments at publiccomments@cityofglendora.org. Do we have anyone at this time wishing to speak?
Thank you, Mayor. At this time, we received no request via the Zoom attendees and no public comments through the public comment email that have been received.
Okay, we'll make the ask one more time. If there's anyone on the Zoom call right now wishing to speak, please use your raise hand icon. Okay, seeing none, then I will close public comment and bring it to council members for reports and statements. Councilmember Thompson.
Madam Mayor, thank you. And with the length that the agenda appears to have, I'll make the thoughts that I have very brief, and that is that our goal line continues to progress in a very fine way. Most of us have seen the excellent work on Grand, on 66 Bridge, and on our Lone Hill Bridge. And those are the main parts that are being worked on, along with our station. That is going extremely well. The schedule is right on time. The budget is ahead of pace as to where we thought that we would be. So I would encourage those that want to know more to go to the website that our goal line has or our city has, and be updated there. But with that, that's all that I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Alawas.
Thank you, Mayor. At our last COG meeting, all the governing board members except for one voted to advance a Blue Ribbon Commission's recommendation in a letter to Los Angeles County Supervisors, and hopefully they'll vote on that soon, which will create an office for the homeless services within the county managed by the CEO and move away from loss services. I'm sure Mendel will be happy about that. We have 5 more years left on the Measure H and want to make the most of it as the provision will sunset within the 5 years. As it stands now, it's highly unlikely that Measure H is going to get extended. I would also like to recognize and bring to the folks' attention the good work that Tri-Community Adult School does for our community when it comes to vocational training and education. Some of the skills that can be learned there and obtain a certificate are language skills, computer high school diplomas, court reporting, metal fabrication, electrician, HVAC systems, become a certified welder, which is in high demand right now, and they can make excellent money, and more at very minimal cost, as placement services are also available as well. Tri-Community has been around for over 80 years and is located in our backyard in Covina. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. They also are known for their ceramics, as they donate hundreds of bowls to Empty Bowls every year. They have pioneer potters at Tri-Community.
And an excellent resource.
Yes. All right, Councilmember Friedendahl.
Thank you, Karen. Would just like to bring to the attention of the community the police department's recent press release about distracted driving, and remind us that driving while distracted is certainly not a good thing. And in the next week and the upcoming week, with schools being on spring break, we have many folks that are likely to be out on the streets and visiting our community. So let's all drive carefully and not make a statistic out of any of them. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Boyer.
Thanks, Karen. I just wanted to give a quick update on Foothill Transit. As you know, with public transportation, the ridership has declined quite a bit during COVID. We're doing everything we possibly can to try to get people back on buses and trains, and try to keep as many people as we can off the roads. So at Foothill Transit, we are back up to full service, and we have rearranged our fares to match Metro in Los Angeles. And that meant a lowering of most of our fares. And we have also, right now, we've got a special for a period of time for our Silver Streak fares that take people from the San Gabriel Valley out to downtown Los Angeles. So everybody needs to keep in mind, I'll talk to people from time to time that will feel that public transportation is a waste of their money because they don't use it. But I keep reminding people, if you never take public transportation, every person on that bus or train is one more car that's not in front of you when you're on the freeway and driving every day. So please keep that in mind. It is a great public service. I do need to give a shout out to Mendel Thompson. I'm embarrassing him a little bit, or his grandson, but we have conflicts from time to time about things that we have to deal with in our dedication and service to the city. And Mendel was attending a city event and had to miss part of his grandson Aaron's high school baseball game, in which Aaron hit 2 home runs in the game. One was a grand slam. So no pressure, Aaron, but we just need you to do that again for Grandpa, and we'll all be rooting for you when it happens. Thanks, that's all.
Thank you, Gary.
Yeah. Tonight, I would like to ask that we adjourn our meeting in memory of Stan West. Many folks know Stan for his ZZ Top look with his long white beard, but he not only for many years owned Stan's Guitar Shop on Foothill, but he also was a performer at our concerts in the park during the summer, and many other events around the community. Spent all of his life living in 2 homes right there that are at the edge of Finkbeiner Park, and has definitely been a mentor to many musicians, as well as gracing us with his own music and talent and ability, and being able to play several instruments, but also and the mentorship he gave to so many other musicians. So we will miss him. And I ask tonight that we adjourn in memory of our friend and favorite musician, Stan West. And with that, it takes us to city manager and city attorney statements. Mr. Raymond or Mr. Winder, anything you'd like to share at this time?
None from me, Mayor.
Nothing from me, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Takes us to special items. Tonight, we are very fortunate to have with us the Executive Director for the San Gabriel Valley Council of Governments, Marissa Creeder. She is the woman who is akin to the Energizer Bunny with all kinds of energy, doing all kinds of things. And we are very grateful for her leadership in the San Gabriel Valley and the many ways in which she makes a difference in so many of our cities through her leadership. So tonight she will be sharing with us on the San Gabriel Valley Regional Housing Trust. Welcome, Marissa.
Thank you. And thank you so much for the very kind introduction. So before I start, I want to acknowledge, first of all, I have Brielle Acevedo with me, who is the Regional Housing Trust. She's amazing and helps make all the things that I'm talking about possible. And then normally when I present in a city, I give a shout out to all the staff. And there were literally so many people at Glendora that I work with that I was like, I'll take the whole time up if I do that. But you have so many wonderful staff and so many different departments that we've been able to do great things with. So I want to acknowledge them. And so with that, I'm going to just give a quick update. I think I was here about a year ago about all the awesome work that the Regional Housing Trust has been doing over the past year. So if you can go to the next slide. As a reminder, the San Valley Regional Housing Trust is a joint powers authority that was formed by Senator Rubio's SB 751. And the purpose is to fund and finance the planning and construction of affordable and homeless housing. We can receive both public and private financing. And we have 22 cities, including the city of Glendora, that are members. So we're really proud of that. Go to the next slide. You can see this is our awesome board of directors. And I want to acknowledge that Mayor Pro Tem Boyer is one of our wonderful 9 members of our board. They do a lot of great work and help us select and award funding to projects. So we have a combination of regional representatives from council members, and then we have 2 housing and homelessness experts. So we have Carol Everall from the city of Baldwin Park and Benita DeFrank from the city of Pomona. You go to the next slide. You can see, so this year what we have been super busy with is working on our $20 million earmark that we received through the 21-22 budget. So the board took action in September of 2021 to allocate funding to 3 different programs. So I'm going to kind of explain what those are, but we have the pipeline project funding for $8 million, a revolving loan fund for $8 million, and then a homeless housing pilot program for $4 million. Additionally, one of our ongoing sources of funding is the Local Housing Trust Fund program. That's a state grant program administered by HCD that provides one-to-one matching funding for affordable housing development. So we have submitted under 2 rounds, both rounds since we've been in existence. Last month was our two-year birthday. So in 2020, we submitted for $1 million, and we submitted 2 projects, one in Claremont and one in Pomona, totaling 71 units. And then last year we submitted for requesting 1.1 million for 2 projects, one in Pomona and one in Alhambra. And we were also awarded, and that will support 175 units. If you go to the next slide. I absolutely love this slide. It just brings me so much joy. It's so incredible to think about the work that's been done over the past 2 years. So these are the projects, the 10 different projects that the trust has been able to provide funding to support. So you see a whole host of different cities that are represented, a whole different types of projects. We have some projects for families, some for seniors, some for homeless. But we have provided a total of $11.7 million to support over 552 units. Our average project per unit investment is $21,000. So knowing that the average cost for an affordable housing project, the units range from about $500,000 to $700,000. Every dollar that the Regional Housing Trust is investing is being leveraged several times over. So that's been really exciting and great to be able to accomplish so much in such a short period of time. If you go to the next slide. This is just some examples of the types of projects that we've been able to award. And these are projects off of the pipeline. I think that's really something really worthwhile to see. We did a press event in the city of Monterey Park, and I think it's very eye-opening to actually go out and visit a lot any of these affordable housing projects, these newer ones that we're doing. They're architecturally very beautiful. They blend into their communities. They have a lot, and they bring a lot to their neighborhoods. So we've been excited. A really cool one is we have the Prisma Artist Lofts in the city of Pomona. And in addition to traditional affordable housing, it's going to have work-live lofts for artists that live there. So there's a lot of very interesting and different types of projects that we're funding. If you go to the next slide. I'm going to talk a little bit about, so I mentioned the pipeline funding. Another thing that we're getting launching actually right as we speak is a revolving loan fund. So our pipeline is to fund a project once it's fully formed and it's getting ready to be built. But we worked with our cities and we did a strategic plan last year. And something that came up was that there was a need to access short-term capital for pre-development and construction loans. So when we received the $20 million earmark, we tried to be responsive to that need. And we're taking $8 million of it to set up a short-term revolving loan fund. We will be working with the cities. We have a consultant on board to set up the loan. And the idea is it's really going to be tailored to our member agencies to make sure that we are providing a loan product that's different than what's already available on the market, so that it's something that will actually help move forward affordable housing in the San Gabriel Valley. Another really awesome thing about this revolving loan fund is that it obviously replenishes. So a project will borrow the funds and then pay the funds back. So this will be able to exist in perpetuity. So this is something that the Regional Housing Trust will be able to continue to operate. Because we're using earmark funding to do the initial set of loans, the first round of projects must close financing by May 30th, 2023. And as I said, we're working on the guidelines right now. But if you have in your mind a project that you think might be a good match for this, please contact me or Brielle. Again, our goal is to get projects funded and happening and moving. Okay, if you go to the next slide. This is, I mean, I always say, like, having this job is so meaningful and you get to really see the difference that you're making. I know that Mayor Davis and several staff members came out to Esperanza Villa right before it opened, and this has just been so incredible. So we have our homeless housing pilot programs. The first one was Esperanza in the city of Baldwin Park, and we opened it the week of Thanksgiving. And it's 25 units of housing for individuals experiencing homelessness in the city of Baldwin Park. We have a case manager on site that provided 3 meals a day. We have restrooms, showers, laundry on site. We have a dog run. It's really incredible. In a period of about 3 months, we took an empty lot that was just dirt and transformed it into this incredible village for people experiencing homelessness. Something that has been really surprising is we had a certain expectation about the individuals that would be served, and we were kind of in our mind thinking it would be a lot of younger males experiencing homelessness. What we found out is that nearly 2/3 of our clients here are seniors. So that's been really heartbreaking, but also meaningful at the same time, that we've been able to help that population and that there is such an incredible need there. Something beyond all the statistics that I love to share is we had our first major success story. So last month, sorry, I get a little emotional talking about this, but last month we had our first client placed into permanent housing out of the site. So that was incredibly exciting. So I have a little bit of information about her. She is 76 years old. She had been reported to be homeless on and off since 2014. She moved in the first week of operations and was there for about 3 months. Staff described her as a sweet lady with an infectious smile. So that was just, beyond everything I can tell you statistics wise, it's incredible that we were able to make that difference. And that's with the support of our board members and the city staff and everybody working together to really make that kind of difference. So we're just super proud about that. If you go to the next slide, we're not stopping there. We have another project pretty much identical to the Baldwin Park one, opening in the city of Montebello in about middle of May at their Metrolink parking station. And that will have 30 units, but it will be similar to the Baldwin Park one that I just showed. And then this is also super cool. So we had an open program for cities to apply if there was something different than that individual's tiny shelter program, and the city of Baldwin Park submitted an application. So the parameters were that you had to operate the site for at least 12 months. We were provided a maximum of $25,000 per bed. And that is if you agreed to operate it for 2 years, and you had to have the project open by 2023. So Baldwin Park came right back up to the plate after we got Esperanza open. They submitted another project, and this is a property that they purchased. It's pretty interesting. It was, I think, the home to Roto-Rooter before, and a luxury car sales, all different kinds of things. But what they're doing, if you look at the site, they're going to be converting the existing buildings into different types of services for families experiencing homelessness. And then they're actually going to put larger portable units in the paved area. And the plan is to have 50 beds of homeless housing for families experiencing homelessness. And we are working hard with them. Our goal, fingers crossed, is to get this site open in September of this year. So we had November was Esperanza. Hopefully May will be Operation Stay Safe in Montebello. And then in September, we hope to have this Baldwin Park site open. And combined, that'll be 105 beds for people experiencing homelessness in the San Rafael Valley that we will have done within a 12-month period. Go to the next slide. So we are trying to help everyone where they're at in every way that we can think of it. So in addition to the funding that we're providing for actual units, we're having planning activities that we're helping cities with. So a couple of things that we're doing, we have the surplus land inventory to help establish an inventory of publicly and privately owned sites that could be service sites for affordable housing. And when we talk about privately owned, we're generally thinking of churches and nonprofits that might be interested in developing affordable housing. We're doing a land trust study. As you know, the cost of land is one of the most expensive parts of developing affordable housing. So we're determining the feasibility of either the regional housing trust itself serving as the host for a land trust that could purchase and hold land, or supporting a nonprofit separately to do that. And then last but not least, we are creating an affordable housing incubator. We're actually operating that through the COG, but it's a bench of technical assistance that is available to cities at no cost. So we have a set of consultants that are under contract any day now. Our board approved the contract 2 weeks ago, but services will be available in any of the 5 disciplines listed on the slide. So financial analysis, technical support, real estate and land acquisition, land use and environmental analysis, public outreach and engagement, and grant writing. So we tried to think of all the different things a city might need to help move forward affordable housing. And again, this is launching next month. So if there's interest, please let me know. So this next slide just kind of summarizes, I think, the effort that we started with the pipeline funding to provide funding to projects that were already being developed. But then we tried to think bigger. And so we're helping with the pre-development and possibly the regional land trust. And then we're going even bigger and trying to help at the very front stages through the affordable housing incubator. And then the pilot programs, we're really working hand in hand with cities to develop the site. So it's been a really exciting 12 months since I was last here. That pretty much covers everything in my presentation. If you go to the very last slide, I just have Brielle's contact information. If you have any questions, if something comes to your mind or a project you're interested in, please contact her or myself. And that's everything.
Great. Thank you so very much for your work. And thank you for sharing all that information. Yeah, I had heard the success story out of Baldwin Park this weekend, and that was very exciting. So good to hear. Are there any questions for Marissa before we move on?
Yeah, I have one, please.
Sure.
Thank you, Marissa and Brielle, for the great work, and the trust's successes are remarkable. I'm hoping that the COG will continue to leverage the county for our fair share of the local funds coming back to us to help you help us. You're acknowledging that. So thank you very much. But don't let up on that. Keep the pedal down on that throttle, and let's go after our due fair money. So thank you, ladies.
Madam Mayor, I just want to echo what David said. There's a lot of groups out there that are trying to do this. Some have done this, but none have done it to the extent of this. As a numbers guy, I am stunned by your average cost. And congratulations to you and your team and to the outstanding board. We are blessed to have Gary there. And I just want to say thank you for shaping lives and changing lives through the stewardship that you all have. And so keep up the incredible work. Thank you.
Aaron?
Yes.
Marissa, thank you for your report. And I know we've discussed this quite a bit at the COG. And I was wondering, with the shortage of workers and skilled labor and things of that nature, and all the services that we are providing through the COG, is there a thought process of working with any of the schools or colleges for work retraining as part of that service as a next step?
It's actually interesting because separate from this effort, we also received an earmark to do workforce development. And so we are partnering with schools, colleges, a whole bunch of different agencies, including actually Pallet, who does the shelters at the site, to support workforce development and kind of fill in some of the gaps that exist in terms of labor.
Great. And I have to say thank you for managing all 30 different personalities that you have on your board and getting things done and having a positive attitude moving forward. It's kind of challenging. I know Adam has only 5 to deal with, and you have a lot more. So thank you.
She holds all of us accountable.
Thank you, Karen.
You know, Karen, if I could just add one thing for a little clarity. The comment, and I want to make sure Mendel didn't misunderstand, that our investment of the Housing Trust works out to about $21,000 per unit.
Right.
That's not the total cost per unit. That's what most of what we do is like bridge type funding to fill in gaps where other funding is not available. But I will tell you, working with this board and with the COG staff, we are very, very aware of the high cost of building some of these projects. And we're keeping an eye on taxpayer money. And more importantly, when the costs get so outrageous, it's that many fewer people that we have the ability to help. If we can cut the costs in half, we can help twice as many people. So this particular board is doing a very good job of keeping an eye on the costs. But I just wanted to make sure that that's our investment in the projects, not the actual cost of the projects per unit. But that was it. But Marissa, great presentation. I appreciate you being here tonight. And as always, you guys do a great job. Thank you.
Thank you, Marissa.
Bye. Thank you.
Okay, that takes us on to public hearings. Item 5, consideration of activity proposed for the annual action plan fiscal year 2022-2023 for the Community Development Block Grant Program. And tonight to report on that, Economic Development and Housing Manager Valerie Velasquez. Welcome, Valerie.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good evening, Council. So this is the first of 2 required public hearings as we plan for the 22-23 Community Development Block Grant. The City of Glendora is an entitlement city, and as such, we have to submit an annual action plan to HUD every year to receive our CDBG allocation. So tonight we'll review the activity that we've included in that draft plan. Next slide, please. As a quick background, the Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG, was enacted in 1974 by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development in order to address affordable housing, anti-poverty efforts, and infrastructure development. Activity that we plan for needs to meet one of 3 national objectives. There has to be a benefit to low and moderate income persons, eliminate slum and blight, or meet an urgent community need. Next slide, please. So as we plan for our 2022-2023 one-year action plan, you'll see that the draft included in the packet will identify specific programs and the budgets allocated to each of those. In addition to the programming needing to meet one of the national objectives, it also needs to fall into the priority needs of the 5-year consolidated plan. We are currently in the last year of the 2018 through 2023 5-year plan, and the priority needs that were established within that were infrastructure and public facilities, economic and human development, fair housing, and administration and planning. And I'll just add that fair housing is a required component for our action plan. Every year, our plan does need to include fair housing. Next slide, please. So as we plan for the next year, we have to know how much funding we will have available. And so taking a look at next year, we have not yet received our allocation from HUD. So we are using a number that's an estimate based on the previous couple years. And so we are estimating $300,000 to be received. In addition to that, there's about $580 in unspent funds from prior years for a total of $300,580. Next slide, please. So the CDBG program does require public participation. And so we put a notice to the public for the notice of funding availability. That gives an opportunity for any groups that have programs that address those national objectives or the priority needs to apply for funding. We published that twice in the paper, as well as putting it on the city website. And we had an application period open from December 23rd through January 21st. During that period, we received 2 applications, one from the Housing Rights Center and one from the Public Works Department. Next slide. So here is an outline of the programming for the upcoming year. Administration, which is going to include the general administration, which is staff time, as well as our consultant, will be $45,000. Fair housing is $15,000. That's what the amount of their application or proposal came in at. And the fair housing services are going to include a number of different components, including fair housing counseling, mediation, investigation of discrimination complaints, and outreach as well. As far as the CDBG administration, the $45,000, I'll also add that as we come to the end of our 5-year plan this upcoming year, we'll also be renewing that and taking a look at preparing the new 5-year plan that will go from 2023 through 2028. So the administration is capped at 20% of the allocation. So if we're assuming it's going to be around 300, that's 60,000 there. And then that would leave us with $240,580 for our street improvement project, for a total of $300,580. The street improvement project, we have a map and we'll take a look at that in a couple slides, but it is a continuation of the project that was submitted with last year's plan. It's fairly large at 9 streets, and so they needed the combined total of 2 years funding to get to that. Next slide, please. So just taking a look, this is the city, and those highlighted areas are the low income census tracts. In order for a street infrastructure project to be done, it needs to fall within one of those low to moderate income census tracts, which is an area that has 51% or greater of the households at low to moderate income. And they're still going off of the 2015 American Community Survey, so it has not been updated yet. So these are what Public Works will look at to determine their street projects. Next slide, please. So just to give you an idea and a reminder of where that street improvement project is, these are the 9 streets that is bounded by Glendora to the east, Grand to the west, Juanita to the north, and Arrow Highway to the south. Next slide. So again, as I mentioned earlier, there's a public participation component required. So in addition to having a notice of funding available, we also go ahead and provide a 30-day minimum public review period of the draft annual action plan. So tonight, with your approval, we will go ahead and open that public comment period. We went ahead and noticed that in the Examiner on March 10th, and the public review period will be open from March 22nd through May 10th. And it has already been posted as well on the city website under departments and community development. And we'll also have it available in City Hall on the city clerk and planning counters. Next slide. So our required steps, again, there's 2 public hearings, the first of which is tonight. Then we have that 30-day public review period. And the second public hearing will return May 10th. And with council's approval, the annual action plan will be submitted to HUD. Next slide. So tonight, the recommendation is that City Council open and conduct the public hearing, accept the activity and projects to be included in the CDBG one-year action plan for fiscal year 22-23, and commence the required 30-day public comment review period. And with that, I will return it to the council.
Thank you very much, Valerie. At this time, I will open the public hearing and invite anyone wishing to make a public comment on this item to use the raise hand icon, and we will call on you. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item?
Thank you, Mayor. We have received no requests to give public comment at this time.
Okay, seeing none, then I will bring it back to the council for comments and questions. Council Member Thompson.
Madam Mayor, thank you. Thank you for the excellent report. I have nothing to ask, and I would support the action that we're being asked to take. Thank you.
Councilmember Friedendahl.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Valerie. I do have a couple of questions. Understanding that this is a continuing project and there's some carryover funds to help fund it from residuals from last year's grants. I had 2 questions. I said, do we have a start date? Because I know we approved a contract for this for design in last June. Do we have a projected start date of when the work will actually begin?
I don't. I know we are waiting for the actual allocation to come through from HUD, and I don't believe they have opened the actual bids yet for this project. I know they are working on it, but we don't have an actual start date yet. We do expect, in talking to Public Works, that it will be complete by the end of the year, but I don't believe we have a start date yet.
Okay, thank you. And second question, in last year's funding, we had a 20% administration fee, roughly $60,000, $62,000. And this year's funds is also taking a 20% administration fee. Do we really need $120,000 to manage the same project, or hasn't that already been covered? And could this money go toward the actual funding of the project?
So we typically will pull that money aside, but if it isn't used, it does get carried over. So in the past, we've had a lot of the administration carryover. This year, I do believe we are going to need those funds. As I mentioned, we do need to renew the 5-year consolidated plan, and we'll be using our consultant to do that. And so we want to make sure we have that put aside so that we can complete that. That'll include a lot of public outreach and workshops, and there'll be a considerable amount of work to complete.
Okay, thank you. No other questions.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Boyer.
No questions. Thank you.
Councilmember Alawas.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Valerie, for your report. I've got a few questions. You mentioned that Public Works had to actually fill out an application as well. Is that the same application that the Fair Housing Center has to fill out as well? They both the same?
It is the same, yes.
Okay. And so will this go on our CIP list if it's done, or is this since it's maybe a different fund of money, does it go someplace else on a different list?
Adam, you can correct me, but I believe it's on our CIP list, but with a different funding source.
That's correct. It's currently a CIP project, and these funds are part of the funding source.
Okay, so we'll see this when we do our CIP review.
And you've already seen these projects with the estimated review over a multi-year period.
Okay, great. So where is the Housing Rights Center located?
I believe they are in Los Angeles.
Okay, so the funds that they get, are they tagged to go to help Glendorans, or is this regional?
It's regional, and they also give us a report of all of the Glendorans that they are assisting and reaching out and do work. So it's a combined effort.
Okay, so it's not particularly tagged to Glendora.
They will respond to as many responses and inquiries and respond to anybody that needs assistance from our city.
And they've also done workshops in Glendora as well.
Yes, they have.
Okay. Last question for you. On the listing for the Housing Rights Center, they list a lot of attributes of what they do. They also talk about legal services. Is this money used at all for litigation purposes?
I don't have that information exactly. I can tell you that it is part of their resources that they offer to people, but I don't have the specific numbers for you if you're looking to know.
Not necessarily specific numbers, but do they offer that service for litigation?
They do offer legal services. I don't know how far they take it, but they do have legal resources available.
All right. That's all the questions I have. Thank you, Valerie.
Okay.
Thank you. If there are no other questions, then I will close the public hearing and ask for a motion.
I move items 1 and 2 in the staff report.
Second.
Thank you. That is a motion by Councilmember Alawas, a second by Councilmember Thompson. I will take a roll call vote. Councilmember Alawas,
Yes.
Councilmember Thompson,
Yes.
Councilmember Friedendahl,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Boyer,
Yes.
and Mayor Davis.
Yes,
And that passes 5-0. Thank you.
thank you. All right, that takes us on to the consent calendar, items 6 through 7, and those can be approved with one motion unless anyone wishes to pull either of those.
I move 6 and 7 on the consent calendar.
I will second.
That is a motion by Councilmember Alawas, a second by Councilmember Friedendahl. I'll take a roll call vote. Councilmember Alawas,
Yes.
Councilmember Thompson,
Yes.
Councilmember Friedendahl,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Boyer,
Yes.
and Mayor Davis.
Yes.
And that passes 5-0. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, that takes us to member agenda items. Item 8, policy development for council proclamations and similar recognitions. And Mr. Raymond.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Tonight we have an item that was requested at our last City Council meeting by Councilman Alawas and Mayor Davis. If we can move forward one slide, please. So taking a step back at a high level, the City of Glendora provides recognitions to the community in a variety of ways, some of which are plaques, certificates, something we call a hot plate. We have a Citizen of the Year recognition. Some of these recognitions follow a formal administration policy. Others have been done so without a policy, sort of passed down from council to council. Our most recent endeavor and look at council recognitions was in April 2021 when the City Council approved the final policy for the Medal of Merit, whereby the mayor and City Council recognize individuals for their exceptional service to the community and or achievements. There's a copy of the policy that's included in your item tonight for reference. Next slide, please. At our last City Council meeting on March 8th, the request was made to discuss a potential policy for proclamations. Originally, we were scheduled to come back to this body in April. However, since the last meeting, the city has received three requests for proclamations for April. Before we move forward with those in our typical way, we wanted to bring this item back before City Council for further discussion. Next slide, please. Just a quick overview. Similar information here was presented on slides when we talked about the Medal of Merit. These are the existing recognition programs for proclamations, a certificate of recognition, Eagle Scout recognition. We have a walnut plaque to thank the individual who has their turn as mayor. We have a city tile plate awarded to the Citizen of the Year. Historically, we have mayor's tile, a 4x4 pewter plaque, provided each mayor develops theirs. Some people have foregone this process. Between 40 and 75 tiles are provided each year. We have a street banner that promotes events in the city. Next slide, please. We have naming of city's property and by plaques. This is considered the highest honor the city can bestow on any resident or community member. We also have a street naming process. We have a memorial tree process. And last but not least is the Medal of Merit. Next slide, please. Just a quick overview of proclamations from 2018 to 21. These are calendar years. On items that have an asterisk by them, you'll see a note in the far right column. Proclamations are not always read at council. Sometimes they are mailed to a requester or submitted or presented at a special function. As you will know, a lot of proclamations are reoccurring. Some are onesies and twosies. Others are every other year, depending on the request received by the city. An example of a one-off is DAR's 113th state conference that was presented at their headquarters, not presented at council. We had Clean Air Day, which was mailed to the Coalition for Clean Air. Next slide, please. Proclamations sometimes follow certain city functions for law enforcement, records and support personnel to a municipal clerks week. We have Breast Cancer Awareness Month, for example, that skipped year 2020. Next slide, please. As you'll note, as we go through these are in alphabetical order. They are across the board, from National Police Officers to National Library Week. Next slide, please. Stroke Awareness Month, Older Americans Month, Park and Recreation Month. Some requests are by week, some are for a specific day, some are a month. And again, the information on the right is for those proclamations that are not provided at City Council. Next slide, please. So in helping to develop the policy, we did some research. Included in your agenda item tonight are 5 sample policies from other agencies all across the state of California, from the south to the north and inland. In reviewing these policies, there were some general themes that occurred throughout. Just go over those at a high level. Essentially, the first and foremost statement that's almost in every proclamation policy or proclamations are ceremonial documents and do not necessarily represent the views of the city and or council members. They're a memorial document in general. Next slide, please. Other common themes included they're usually restricted to public awareness campaigns or local honors for a nonprofit, a local community or special event that wanted to be recognized. Celebrations, either arts or cultural services, special honors for an employee or a community member, outstanding service. There's a lot of phrases that included essentially not issued for matters of political controversy, ideological or religious beliefs, individual convictions, political campaigns of any kind, or events contrary to city policies and or applicable laws. Completely understand this is a very broad category, and which is why there's generally a review of 1 or 2 council members included in this process. Next slide, please. Other general themes, policies were incorporated. The policy usually centered around not just proclamations, but other forms of acknowledgement, usually certificates, proclamations, resolutions. Some cities have keys to the city or other types of employee or city acknowledgements. Again, most policies provide that they may be issued at city council meetings, special events, or mailed to a recipient. These are not items that are voted on, but more of a ceremonial document provided to a requester. Usually the requests come in through the city manager's office or city clerk's office. Next slide, please. And they usually follow an application process. These requests can be submitted via a hard file document. More and more common is an online submittal. There is a reason for the request, the name of the organization, some proposed language is usually required. Approval of the request is generally reviewed by the mayor. In this specific case, our proposed policy at attachment F includes the addition to the mayor pro tem, which is similar to the Medal of Merit policy, which includes a review by the mayor and mayor pro tem. We also see in a proposed proclamation policy that typically the city reserves the right to look at the content, make changes and or the length of the proposed proclamation. And usually when cities have a formal policy, the list of proclamations is available somewhere on the city's website. Next slide, please. Attachment F to your agenda tonight is the city's proposed policy. In working with Councilman Alois and Mayor Davis, we drafted a policy based on the request of the council to discuss proclamations. If you're looking at your entire agenda packet, that begins on page 122, attachment F. Wanted to read a couple of sections in this policy that highlight sort of the general characteristics of the policies that we reviewed. The policy objective states the purpose of this policy is to establish guidelines for the issuance of proclamations, which is a ceremonial document of appreciation and or recognition. Proclamations are strictly honorary and do not carry any legislative or legal value, nor do they necessarily reflect the viewpoints of each individual council member. And again, this comes from the fact that these proclamations are not voted upon, but rather ceremonial in nature. Additionally, we include that proclamations may be issued in not an exhaustive list, but some examples of civic celebrations, celebration of city employees or departments, organizations contributing to the economic development of the city, issues with widespread community interest with a primary emphasis on requests that support city council's goals or objectives, significant community-based events, significant anniversaries of the city of Glendora-based institutions, corporations, community partners, and nonprofit organizations that are active in the community, or fundraisers benefiting the city of Glendora or the citizens of Glendora. We do include a specific section on recognition will not be issued for any of the following. The proposed include events or organizations with no direct relationship to the city of Glendora, political campaigns of any kind, events contrary to city policies and applicable law and regulations, matters of political controversy, ideological or religious beliefs or individual convictions, and retirements with the exception of city employees, elected or appointed officials and volunteers. The proposed policy before you this evening includes language that any proclamation request is reviewed by the mayor or mayor pro tem before it is either mailed or presented at a council meeting or a special event by a member of the city council. And they also included the language that the city reserves the right to edit any language and or length. Next slide, please. So before the city council this evening are several options. These are not exhaustive, but sort of constitute the global discussion here. First included in your packet this evening is a resolution and policy the council may adopt this evening, making minimal changes as necessary. City council could also direct staff to make substantial changes, included and not limited to significant or material changes to the draft proclamation policy, including the intent, qualifications, approval process, or similar aspects. The city council could direct staff to incorporate several city recognition programs into a single policy, certificates, proclamations, medal of merit, for example, etc. And 3, the city council may take no action and decide to move forward with past practice for proclamations. Next slide, please. So with that, we ask City Council discuss, review, and provide direction to staff on the development of administrative policy related to proclamations and other City Council recognitions. I just want to take this time to say thank you to Councilman Alois and Mayor Davis. Spent a lot of time with them going over the proposed language in the policy this evening, taking some of their changes into consideration and working with them together to propose the information that's before you this evening. And with that, look forward to City Council direction. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Raymond, and thank you to you and staff for the time that needed to be spent on this. And Councilmember Alois, since you requested this item and have already worked with staff on putting this language together, I will call on you first.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, Adam, you did an amazing job in doing your research and putting this together. and our lengthy conversations, both via email and by the phone. I think you landed very well on this policy, and I'll support it as written. But thank you very much for all the time. I really enjoyed and liked the benchmarking from the other cities, because we don't always get to see what other cities do, and we kind of in our own little bubble. So it was nice to have that benchmarking. So again, I really appreciate all the time and effort. And you wrote this yourself, so staff didn't, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, all right. So thank you again.
Thank you. Councilmember Thompson.
Madam Mayor, thank you. And I do want to echo what has just been said, and thank you to you, Mayor, and Michael and Adam for all of the work that you've done. It's not that I won't support this, but I have a opinion that this whole process should be shrunk down. I feel that in today's world, there's a celebration for every day, probably a number of things we could celebrate every day. And it seems like the list just continues to grow and grow and grow. And I would support doing these, but doing them in a way that the council expresses these are the people or companies or ministries or institutions or events that have been awarded. Just simply say, this is who has gotten this. I find it just a better event when there's a story that is behind each one of these. I've been blessed in my own life to get a few of these things where the whereases seem to go on forever. But what most people recall is a simple story as to why a proclamation is in fact being done. And I think we've stretched the limit of tolerance, at least in my own mind, for the number of things that we talk about, and they're all good. And I don't want to minimize those, but I think that it could be done in a more efficient and streamlined way and a meaningful way. And so I would support maybe some additional changes to what the policy is. Again, I'm not going to vote no, but I would like it to be shrunk down and not be as broad as it currently is, and simply post what we've done, say what we've done, and we can move on. So those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Friedendahl.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Adam and staff, and Michael and Karen, for the diligence to get this through. I think the clarity of the processes and identifying some of those particulars helps clean up any ambiguity that may have existed. So good job there. I like the fact that it is a broad recognition by the city for celebratory items and not any one person's agenda. So thank you for that. And I like the clear and simple process. So I encourage and support what's being proposed tonight as presented. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Boyer.
Thank you, Karen. Thinking about what Mendel had to say, one of the things that we sometimes forget about, because we deal with a lot of these types of celebrations, and these are extremely important to the people that are receiving them and the people that are being acknowledged for work and everything that they've done. So I don't have an issue with doing them, but I thought about maybe we could change our policy of reading certain proclamations. I don't know if that might be something that might not, want to be considered, but maybe we could add something into our policy that states that we're only going to read proclamations when they have, direct effect on the residents or the Glendora city staff or something like that. Because we do have a lot of these that, we take the time to read them, and again, it's important to recognize people, but maybe just the practice of reading so many of them, because we've had meetings that we will read 3 or 4 of these in one evening. So I don't know if that is something that anyone else would like to chime in on. That might streamline the process a little bit, and it may also eliminate some controversy when it comes up, because again, unfortunately, our country and we all are getting much more divided, and things are, it seems like everything is political today. So it wouldn't be surprising to see more and more of these try to send a political statement. So does anybody else have an opinion on maybe not continuing the practice of reading the proclamations?
We don't read that many proclamations as it is. We don't have a ton that we do. Adam, what was the number again that we've done, let's say last year?
It's about 25 to 40, depending on any given year. I would say 3/4 of them to half of them come before City Council for consideration. I think what the Mayor Pro Tem was referencing, I remember a couple meetings last year. I think one we had 4 proclamations and one we had 5 proclamations. And
that's a rarity.
And I would look at Bill for some just general advice. It would seem to me that the mayor can make that determination on what gets read and what does not based on the need of that evening.
That's been my experience. I'll give you my experience in other cities that we represent. I represented the city of Carson for 13 years. They do hundreds of proclamations. They have a whole city council meeting that is dedicated to proclamations, and that's all they do. They don't do proclamations in any of their business meetings. They set aside 1 meeting a quarter to do all their proclamations. In Cyprus, my experience was that the proclamation was simply presented, and maybe the now therefore be it resolved was read, but none of the whereas clauses were ever read. But it's purely up to the council. And I've seen in special circumstances where the mayor, who's the ceremonial head of the council presenting the proclamation, will choose to read some of the whereases, but not all of them. So you got lots of options.
Well, and actually, that was some of the impetus behind the quarterly recognitions way back when those started. Prior to that, there were all kinds of presentations every council meeting, as well as proclamations, but recognizing this group of people or honoring this or that. And the council meetings got very drawn out with all of that. So the council decided, hey, let's have these quarterly recognitions where we do all of the recognizing and celebrating so that the business meeting doesn't get stretched out as much with all of the ceremonial and recognition part. So that's always an option to move more of those to those quarterly recognitions. And streamline things a little bit, but it's up to the council.
The policy includes the ability to do those any way possible. So it could cover all of those. The Councilman Thompson and Mayor Pro Tem, that could all be done through consultation with the mayor and Mayor Pro Tem, how that's handled during that meeting.
Well, that's what I'm sorry, Gary, you go ahead. You had the floor.
No, that's what I was thinking as we were talking here. The policy, the way it's written, is very acceptable, with the idea that maybe we can take this next year to take a look at those and limit what actually is being read or how we're going to present them. So we can do that, I'm sure.
Well, and I would support that. I still go back to the fact that I think people remember a story. They don't remember the 4 or 5 whereases. And I've been a part of a lot of this stuff in other parts of my life. And when there's a salient story about someone or a company, that's the real point that people leave with, and it's a aha sort of experience, not four whereases that nobody remembers any of that like a half hour after it's read. And I found the quarterly things very warm, engaging. Friends and family comes when a person's home is recognized, when the Girl Scouts, the Boy Scouts do something amazing, when different things are experienced and there's a story that goes along with it. That's when it's a meaningful thing, and I would certainly support that if others would. So
Adam, will we have to incorporate that into the policy if we want to have these read at quarterly meetings, or is that something the mayor can do?
No, so right now, just whatever policy you want to go with on proclamation, you can approve that. And then the details can be handled going forward. So
there is significant leeway for how that needs to be handled, even if it changes in the future. And I agree with the Mayor Pro Tem's comments that this gives us plenty of leeway if we need to make tightening or changes in the policy moving forward.
So with that said, I move to adopt the proposed proclamation policy as drafted.
And Councilman, would you mind amending your proclamation to also adopt a resolution adopting the proclamation policy as well?
Isn't that what I just did?
I think there are two separate recommendations. The first one is to adopt the resolution adopting the proclamation policy, which incorporates the proclamation by exhibit.
So moved.
I think we should give something to Adam, a proclamation for writing the proclamation.
Well, Councilman, I've gotten that text on several different people, so there are many of you that are all thinking the same thing.
yes.
Well, I would second.
Well, no, we're going to give him a proclamation, a certificate, a medal of merit, a mayor's tile, and every other thing that somebody can dream up. So
absolutely.
That's usually on the way out, Karen.
So,
are you trying to say something?
No, I think I just said it, sir, and I call for the vote.
Yeah.
Thank you. That is a motion by Councilmember Alawas, a second by Councilmember Thompson. I'm going to take a roll call vote. Councilmember Alawas,
Yes.
Councilmember Thompson,
Yes.
Councilmember Friedendahl,
Yes, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Boyer,
Yes.
and Mayor Davis.
Yes.
And that passes 5-0. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. All right. Now that we have gotten beyond proclamations, we are on to unfinished business. Policy changes required due to change of City of Glendora City Council election date from March 2022 to November 2022 relating to City Council policies regulating the reorganization of the City Council and selection of mayor and mayor pro tem. And tonight to report on that, City Clerk and Communications Director Kathleen Sessman. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Davis and council members. Council, as the mayor mentioned, the report before you tonight is to consider a city council resolution that will amend a city council policy relating to the reorganization and selection of the mayor and mayor pro tem for the city of Glendora. The city council reorganization and selection of mayor and mayor pro tem is regulated by government code, which establishes it's regulated by government code. But the actual establishment of the terms and the method in which the council, the method in which the city sets is set by city council resolution and policy. The current policy outlines and requires that the city council appoint one council member to serve as mayor and one member to serve as the mayor pro tem. This reorganization occurs yearly, and the term of office is from the date of the city council reorganization to the next selected reorganization of the city council. This policy was last updated in 2019 when changes were required due to Senate Bill 415, which required the city and local government agencies to change and move their election cycle to coincide with the state election cycle. Due to additional changes in the state law, specifically related to Senate Bill 970, the city council had to switch the statewide primary elections from March to June in even years, or without the presidential election, and the March in years with presidential elections starting in 2022. The city council changed the election, Glendora's election, from March to November, starting in 2022, to provide the residents with some consistency and to hopefully avoid any additional changes to the presidential election in the future. Changes before you tonight regarding the city council reorganization coincide with the changes to the city council election and are proposed in a resolution and a policy that was attached as attachments B and C of your staff report. Basically, the change that is required is we need to change the reorganization in non-election years from the second regular scheduled meeting in March to the first regular scheduled meeting in November. So that's step one. Step two is our regional appointments. The city council is involved in numerous regional and local organizations that focus on issues of importance to the San Gabriel Valley and Glendora. As part of these memberships, the council is requested and asked to appoint individuals to sit on these boards and provide guidance. As some of the appointments are regulated and require that the mayor serve as the city's representative, this is always conducted at the same meeting in which the city council reorganizes. The city does not have a formal policy relating to regional and local boards and commission appointments, but one can be brought back at a later date if the council is desired. I'm available to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sussman. Mr. Thompson.
Madam Mayor, thank you. Kathleen, I'm just a little slow here, but on the policy that you just expressed your thoughts from, I guess it's item C, number 4. Could you help me to understand on number 4 during non-election years? So this year, the election, I'm assuming, will be on November the 3rd or thereabouts.
So the current policy is fine for election years. Right now, we are considered to be in an election year.
Right.
So there's no change required because the reorganization automatically occurs the same date we do the certification of election results. But if you look at the second part of section 4, where it says during non-election years, reorganization shall occur. Originally, it was set to occur on the second regular scheduled meeting in the month of March. We needed to occur at the first regular scheduled meeting in the month of November, now that the council has changed their election date.
Okay, so that would be in 23, which is a non-election year.
Correct.
But in 22 and 24, you won't have the vote in till when? I mean,
it depends on the county. That's why we don't put a date. That's why this policy did not have to be brought to you earlier.
Okay.
Because we have to depend on the county for when they give us the election results.
Okay.
And then it comes to you.
And Kathleen, the reason we use the first meeting in November, not the second, is typically we have a break that meeting in September for Thanksgiving.
Normally it takes the county it takes about a month before they get back to us. So I'm assuming that most likely during election years, it'll be the first meeting in December.
Okay. That that just was a question that I had because I wasn't seeing election year dates, but I understand now why that you were, you weren't keen on putting those dates in because obviously you don't know when the election results are going to be back. So,
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Alawas.
Thank you, Mayor. Kathleen, great job on trying to figure out this puzzle. I don't know how you do it, and I'm surprised you don't get a headache from it, or maybe you do. But I don't have any questions. Thank you very much.
Mayor Pro Tem Boyer.
The question, Kathleen, is there a reason we didn't consider the first meeting in December in non-election years, as that will probably be what happens in election years? Again, November and December, we only have one meeting, and sometimes they can be jammed. Sometimes they can not have a lot on them, the agendas. But was there a reason to not consider the first meeting in December?
No, we can, if the council's preference is to do the first meeting in December, we can totally change it to the first regular meeting in December. There's no reason why it couldn't be one or the other.
Okay.
I think Barry, in a perfect world, we were hoping the county would certify the elections in the month of which the election occurred. And so that we could have the changes, in that month to not overly confuse the topic. But I mean, the first meeting in September, if that's when it always happens, is just fine as well.
Go ahead, Kathleen.
There is a chance, theoretically, the goal is that they would get the results to us before the second meeting in November. But we haven't had the results within we normally get it within the 30 days that they're allowed to take. We don't normally get it earlier.
Okay, the other thing I think about the reorganization, it sort of a lot of the groups and things that we belong to do have Christmas end of the year type events. And if we made the changes in December, then you'd be starting out the new year as opposed to making those changes actually in the month of December. So I'd prefer to see that the first regularly scheduled meeting in the month of December, unless anybody else objects to that.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, that's all I had, Karen. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Councilmember Friedendahl.
Thank you, Mayor, and I concur. That was my thought was, if we confuse the city by in the year of the dog, it's in November, but the year of the cat, it's in December, and that's crazy to track. And frankly, we're being held hostage by the LA County Registrar for their performance. Not too reliable. So I would defer to December at least. Make our reorganization contacts to the respective agencies and committees and things, and they can start their business anew in January, go to the holiday party, but whatever. And I think it's a lot cleaner and simpler to just decide first meeting in December. So I agree with that thought.
Okay, very good. Then I will ask for a motion.
I'll make a motion to adopt the policy as written, but changing the during non-election years to the first regularly scheduled meeting in the month of December.
I'll second that.
I think I heard Councilmember Thompson. Is that correct for second?
I don't care.
That's fine.
Because
Yeah.
it doesn't matter.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so we will go with a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Boyer, a second by Councilmember Thompson. I'll take a roll call vote. Councilmember Alawas,
Yes.
Councilmember Thompson,
Yes.
Councilmember Friedendahl,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Boyer,
Yes.
and Mayor Davis.
Yes.
That passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kathleen. All right, that takes us to item 10, conduct a discussion on City of Glendora teleconference public meetings and returning to in-person meetings. And once again, City Clerk Communication Director Sussman.
Thank you, Mayor. As the mayor has mentioned, tonight we are asking that the city council conduct a discussion on returning to in-person meetings and consider the proposed resolution that would return the city to in-person Brown Act meetings starting April 1st, while providing with the city with the option of conducting teleconferenced, in-person, or hybrid meetings if the governor's declaration of emergency is either extended or COVID protocols become more restrictive. Just to give a little bit of history, starting in September of 2021, the city council and monthly thereafter adopted resolutions ratifying the state of emergency by Governor Newsom to reauthorize remote teleconference meetings for the Glendora's legislative bodies. These resolutions were good for a period of 30 days and had to be renewed every 30 days in order to comply with requirements of AB 361. The existing resolution is set to expire on March 31st. On Thursday, March 3rd, Los Angeles County released a new health order that no longer required masking or vaccination verifications for indoor public settings and businesses, but strongly recommended masks for all persons regarding a vaccination status in indoor public settings and businesses. Due to the fluidity in which COVID-19 infection protocols have been set and changed by federal, state, county agencies, we are requesting that the city council allow staff some flexibility for the next 30 days relating to City of Glendora public meetings. The proposed resolution has been modified to allow flexibility for the city to conduct public meetings either by teleconferencing, in-person, and or hybrid pursuant to AB 361 through April 30th, 2022, and ensures that the city has the ability to continue to conduct public meetings for the next 30 days should there be any restrictive health orders that get put into place. While all council, board, and commission meetings would be considered in person starting April 1st, the proposed resolution allows an elected and or appointed official to attend virtually if and when needed. So more specifically, what this resolution is going to allow us to do is move forward with in-person hybrid approach that we would utilize to allow for the public attendance via Zoom or in person. City council and board commission members would be able to attend in person, which is the preference, or via Zoom if needed. City staff making presentations will also be encouraged when possible to attend and present in person. City staff not presenting may continue to attend in person or via Zoom. The council chamber will have medical grade masks along with a supply of hand sanitizer and wipes if needed and or requested. Open doors and windows will provide some ventilation as long as the weather allows. And then the capacity of the chamber will be limited to approximately 40 chairs, which will allow a little additional space as you enter the room and will be on a first come, first service basis. So in summary, if council adopts the resolution, the city staff will transition back to in-person meetings starting April 1st, but this will also provide an option to conduct teleconference or in-person or hybrid meetings if the governor's declaration of emergency is extended or, as we have experienced, COVID protocols become more restrictive. Staff is continuing to ensure that all existing COVID protocols are being followed and monitors the changes with respect to health orders issued by the state and county. Staff is recommending that the city council approve the proposed resolution as it provides city staff with some flexibility as we continue to navigate COVID federal, state, and county agency regulations. If the council decides not to adopt the proposed resolution, all council members, board members, commissioners, and staff will be prevented from participating remotely should the need arise. We do believe that will be able to continue offering public comments via Zoom or in person. Will be a viable option as of April 1st for the public's participation and to expand the access of the city's public meetings. The changes made to the proposed resolution are highlighted in the staff report and in the resolution under section 4 of the proposed resolution, and I'm available to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Kathleen. Councilmember Friedendahl.
Thanks, Kathleen. Just as a question of clarity, when you say that the council chambers will have 40 seats, that's gallery seats that you're counting. You're not including staff and commission seats. Is that correct?
It won't include the seats at the dais up front. It will include, I mean, pre-COVID, staff used to sit in some of those seats.
Yes.
So depending on how many people are there to attend, we might have to adjust where.
Understood.
In person.
Thank you. And you're confident that our tech group is prepared to go and has all the tools and resource to navigate the hybrid opportunities that you're proposing?
Starting April 1st, we'll be ready to handle a the public comments via Zoom or in person. That option will be ready to move forward with. There are some additional changes we're looking at making to make the remote access more streamlined and more, I mean, honestly, more viewer friendly. It'll make the process a lot easier to watch, but physically we will be able to have Zoom call-ins from the public.
Okay, great, good news. And you have to promise to teach me how to drive the dais because I've never done it. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Thompson.
Madam Mayor, thank you. Thank you for the excellent update. I know this is a changing world and everything, but I do support what you've said. I'm anxious to get back live, but I'm anxious as well to have the option for the public and for us if we happen to be gone or hopefully not sick, but if we are, or if we need to stay home, be able to obviously dial in. So I think both are good, and I want to support that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Boyer.
Yeah, I've got a couple of issues. First off, we let an extremely important event slip by all of us at the beginning of this meeting. This is the first time in 2 years we did not receive a COVID update from the city manager. Wow. We love you, Adam, but boy, were we sick of that. Secondly, do our windows open at the council chambers?
Yes, we've actually have confirmed there are some windows that open.
Wow. Okay, surprising. Now I think it's
some
time.
if you open, they may fall out, but they're
that I don't take responsibility for.
It's important that we get back in person. So many good things have come out of this pandemic, and one of the things that has is the fact that we have figured out, or somebody has figured out, this magic that gives us the opportunity to be able to meet remotely. So it gives more people the opportunity to be involved in our meetings, better interaction, but that in-person interaction is something that we all need. So I'm looking forward to this. And David, don't worry, I will show you where the council chambers are, because I know you haven't had a chance to be there yet in this capacity. And it's also important to point out that if we had not changed the elections, this would mark 2 mayors in a row that were 100% virtual mayors. So Karen, you do not get the banner or the crown that we gave to Michael next year because we're going to be in person soon. But I support this and I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
And that banner was so cute.
Yeah, but I'm the first hybrid mayor.
Yes, definitely.
There you go.
Hey, Councilmember Alawas.
Thank you, Kathleen, for your reports. I've got a couple of questions for clarity. If the governor does not extend the emergency order, what is the end date?
If and I'll have to confirm, but I don't think there was an specific end date to it. I don't know if
He would have to take an action to withdraw the declaration of emergency.
And we did receive an update from our lobbyist that at this time, there is no proposed date in which that could end. And the legislature is also looking at making some of the changes to the Brown Act permanent. So we sort of await all of that process as well.
So if he does waive it or does whatever he does and it ends, with what we're doing tonight, does that go away without legislation?
No. The only thing that would change is if the declaration of state emergency is withdrawn or rescinded or terminated, you could still participate as council members via Zoom, but you'll have to comply with the telecommunications provisions of the Brown Act, which means the location from which you're attending the council meeting at would have to be open to the public. You'll have to post the agenda, but you could still appear via Zoom in that environment.
So we go back to the way it was before.
It would, except instead of telecommuting in, you could still use the Zoom technology. The Brown Act the in-person attendance elements of the Brown Act only apply to legislative bodies. You will always be able to allow the public to Zoom into your meetings if you choose to do so. They're not subject to the Brown Act.
Correct. So either Bill or Adam, can you answer this? Are we under any Cal OSHA requirements till the end of the year with staff?
Yes. Yeah, so the emergency provision extended by Newsom extends in 3 different ways. One's to Cal OSHA for the emergency temporary standards, which are still in effect. I believe those were extended either till September or May of 2022 for an interim period, but those could be extended for any period of time by action of Newsom.
Okay, I'm of the opinion that all boards, commissions, and our meetings should be in person regardless, and revert back to the way it was before and allow staff and the public to have a hybrid option. We were elected to be in front of the folks, and if a sticky subject comes up, I think we all need to be there in front and listen to what the issues are, not be on a meeting. That's my 2 cents there. But to allow staff because of the OSHA situations and also allow for the public to Zoom in or hybrid or whatever, I think that's quite appropriate because we can get as most people participating as possible is always a good thing. That's all I have. Thank you.
Well, I see the allowance for council members not as a way in which any of my colleagues would take that as a way out. But in the case, for instance, if someone needed to quarantine or someone was ill, that allows an opportunity for that person to still participate via Zoom. So I see it as allowing for that exception, not that everyone's going to leave town and be Zooming in. So I see that people would still take that seriously. So anyone wishing to make a motion?
Actually, I have one other question, if I could, Karen.
Yes.
Have we, and maybe we haven't gotten that far yet, because let's face it, when we were in person and even here on Zoom, we had times in which we had many more than 40 people wanting to show up and express their concerns at our council meetings. Yeah. Have we thought about how that will be addressed, or is that something that's still in the planning?
So a couple of different ways in which we can address some of those items, I think, and this is a great point, in our strategic plan and in our CIP is a proposed council chambers expansion. Utilizing some of the panel architects, we're going to begin those conversations on what the expansion of the council chambers looks like as a long-term fix. And we're also exploring some improvements in the bidwell form that would allow us to have a more council-like experience in the bidwell form for larger events as well. Additionally, with the Zoom functionality, you would have individuals, if they so chose, could call in remotely and participate, show their face if they chose to do so. But for the initial overflow period, as we get back into the council chambers, the provision would still have to be to sort of hold some people in the bidwell and send them back towards the council. I think we're trying to address two things at the same time. One, provide greater access immediately, and then two, plan for the future. I think we've learned from COVID is the need to be flexible, and definitely greater access to the city through public meetings, through an expansion of the council chambers is chief among some of our concerns, and that definitely is in the process.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
So I'll give this a shot. I move that all council and board commissions go back to in-person meetings without exception, and to allow the public and staff the hybrid option.
And Councilman, that also includes the possibility for city council, board, and commissioners to participate remotely under the existing resolution that would be adopted this evening.
No.
So yours is different than the proposal by staff.
He's making a different motion.
He's making a separate motion.
Okay.
Hearing.
Fails for lack of a second.
Yes, I was just going to say, hearing no second, it fails. So I will entertain another motion.
Okay, I'll move that we accept the recommendations of staff.
I'll second.
And adopt the resolution.
And adopt the resolution.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll
That is,
second that.
thank you. That is a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Boyer, a second by Councilmember Friedendahl. I will take a roll call vote. Councilmember Alawas.
Had to try, but yes.
Councilmember Friedendahl.
Yes.
I miss Councilmember Thompson.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Boyer.
Yes.
And Mayor Davis.
Yeah.
That passes 5-0. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. All right, that takes us to new business. Award contract for Gladstone Reservoir Demolition and Parking Lot Improvement Project, Plan 1242, and the amount of $1,305,945,000. And tonight to report on that, Public Works Director Allison Sweet.
Hi, good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. As you're aware, you're here. This is a request for your approval of the award of the construction contract for Gladstone Reservoir Demolition and the Parking Lot Improvement Project. Next slide, please. For some background, the reservoir site is adjacent to Gladstone Park, just south of Gladstone Avenue. It's a concrete, half-buried, 11-foot high, 150 feet diameter, with an 18-foot high roof, which was built in 1925. Up until the 1990s, the reservoir and booster pump station were used to receive water from the Irwindale well sites and was a holding reservoir to pump for Zone 1. Also during the 90s, the roof and columns were replaced. And Zone 1, just to let you know, is the largest zone in our water system, which is approximately 50% of our total water demand. And it covers like 3,335 acres. The 2017 Water Master Plan recommends the removal of the reservoir and the booster pumps. Also note there's potential future use of this site, so it will stay under the direction of the Water Division in case this site is needed for water supply in the future. We are in preliminary talks with neighboring agencies about studying the feasibility of installing a treatment facility at the Irwindale site and removing contaminants and blending water and pumping through Zone 1. The reservoir was utilized to store water for the distribution in Zone 1 from the Vosburg and then going through the San Gabriel plant. But due to the contaminants and age and condition of the reservoir and booster pump stations, it's no longer in use. Therefore, we're recommending the demolition of the reservoir and to utilize the site for additional parking for the park. We are also underway for our water infrastructure assessment and the discussions with the neighboring sites, and we will review the potential use of this site. Next slide, please. So the scope of this work includes the demolition of the 1925 1.5 million gallon water reservoir, paving the existing parking lot, and then going from 26 to 47 parking stalls. And then there will be some concrete work to surrounding the asphalt and giving access for pedestrians. That also will include landscaping and for turf, and then planting some drought tolerant plants. Will also improve the water efficient irrigation. The work also includes the removal of the old SCE transformer and construct a new pedestal, which will be sized for events or performances within the park. Next slide, please. And this is a picture showing the location of the existing reservoir. Next slide. And here's another one where you can see the parking, or you see the round reservoir, and then there's the existing parking lot on the right side of the reservoir. With the removal of this reservoir, the parking will basically cover the right portion of the footprint of the reservoir, and then on the left side of the footprint will be the grassy area. All right, next slide, please. So here's another plan view of it. And once this reservoir is demolished, it will be filled with imported soil to match the surrounding surface area. This slide shows the two parking areas and the new grassy area. And the existing and the new parking lot will both be resurfaced. Next slide, please. And this shows, it's kind of hard to see here, but the entrance and exit into the existing parking lot is kind of at a skew. And so the improvements will include a 90-degree entrance, which will allow for easier access, entry and exit into the site. Okay, next slide, please. So here is the bidding information. The bids were opened last month on February 24th. The engineer's estimate was $1,292,000 and $806 and some change. We received two bids, and they ranged from $1.187 million to $1.66 million. And our recommendation is to award to the company called Rec Edge Demolition, Inc. of Fontana. All right, next slide, please. And here is the recommended timeline. If we award tonight, we will start construction April 25th with 75 working days. The work will be completed on August 9th, and that's the length of the contract. All right, next slide, please. So here is the engineer's estimate, or the probable cost of the full project, with the total being $1.366 million. And our original budget was $949,263. And so we're asking an appropriation of $416,878. Next slide, please. And with these recommendations, that concludes my presentation. And I also have our Water Division Assistant Director, Chisholm Abagalu, who's also available for any questions.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Boyer.
No questions, thank you.
Councilmember Friedendahl.
Just one question, and the answer is obvious, apparently, that we have not been using this for storage for quite some time. In our ongoing infrastructure survey, if we come back and need storage, I guess we'll find that somewhere else, or utilize maybe a higher point on a hill or something to replace this capacity.
I can take that question, Allison. Council member, if you see in the drawings, we actually had adequate spacing in the event that we actually needed to come back after the assessment to erect a new tank. We were very intentional as to not to install any permanent structures within the existing grounds of the reservoir. And once the assessment is complete and a determination is made that we will need additional storage capacity at this particular location, we will then evaluate it at that time.
Okay, good plan. Thank you.
Anything else? Councilmember?
No, thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Alawas.
Can we go straight to go and approve items 1 through 5 on the staff report?
Councilmember Thompson, did you have?
I would second that. I'm with Gary. I have nothing more to ask. I think that the update was good. It needs to be done. So second that.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Elvia, I turn it over to you.
Thank you. That is a motion by Councilmember Alawas, a second by Councilmember Thompson. I'll take a roll call vote. Councilmember Alawas,
Yes.
Councilmember Thompson,
Yes.
Councilmember Friedendahl,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Boyer,
Yes.
and Mayor Davis.
Yes,
That passes 5-0. Thank you.
thank you. Thank you, Allison and Chisholm.
Thank you.
All right, that takes us to item 12, approval of Business Improvement District fiscal year 2022-2023 annual report and consideration of a resolution announcing intention to levy and collect assessments for fiscal year 2022-2023 for the Glendora Village Business Improvement District. And to report on that, Economic Development and Housing Manager Valerie Velasquez. Welcome back, Valerie.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good evening, everyone, once again. So as mentioned, this is the presentation of the Business Improvement District's annual report for the fiscal year 2022-2023. Next slide, please. So the annual report is required by state law as well as the Glendora Municipal Code. It is required to be submitted to City Council every year by June 1st. The annual report, approval of the annual report, as well as the adoption of the resolution of intent to levy and collect assessments, begins the process that is required in order to renew the assessments each year. And because of the multiple steps that are required for the renewal of the assessments, we do start this presentation to council earlier. It actually begins with the budget review and the annual report from the BID board back in February and March as well. Next slide, please. So the annual report includes several components. It includes the BID boundaries. I'll have a map on the next slide. There's no changes that have been recommended, so the boundaries will remain the same. The activity is a line item of the different activity that they plan, as well as the budget associated with each line item. It includes the assessment methodology, that is how the assessments are calculated for each of the businesses within the BID. Again, no changes are proposed. The assessments will remain the same. It includes surplus revenue, that is the amount of funds that are in their fund balance that carry forward, and they use those to cover any funding gaps or in the future if they decide to do any capital projects. As well as funding sources that are in addition to the assessments collected. There are revenues that are generated through event and interest earned. Next slide, please. So everyone is probably familiar. These are the village or the BID boundaries. It's bounded to the north at Bennett, to the east at Vista Bonita, to the south at Foothill, with a little extension to include the shopping center that's across from City Hall, and then on the west by Vermont. Next slide, please. So this is just a reminder of what the assessment methodology is. It is proposed to remain the same as it is in the current fiscal year. The assessments range between $0 and $600 per year. The zero assessments are for the residential and the side streets on Vermont and Vista Bonita, as well as the shopping center across the street. And then the the assessments between 100 and 600 just depend on whether you're a secondary or primary business, whether you're retail or office, and then your location. Next slide, please. So this is a look at the proposed budget that the BID board has recommended for council to approve. You'll see the revenue on the left side. It is primarily composed of assessments and revenue that is generated from events, primarily the wine walk. The revenue total is projected to be $99,600. And then you've got your expenditures on the right side, which are made from the marketing, some landscaping contributions, the different events, as well as miscellaneous, which includes storage and their outdoor speakers, as well as banners. New this year, the board approved or recommended for approval last month, or this month actually, earlier this month, an event coordinator. And the reason for that is that typically in past years, they have had volunteers that would coordinate all of their events. The Wine Walk, Chalk Festival, and Friday Night Twilight Series take a considerable amount of time to coordinate. And we had our current event chairs for those events unable to do so. And so the board was presented with that discussion and decided for us to solicit some proposals for event coordinators, and did go ahead and approve one earlier this month at their March meeting. So with that addition, it does put the expenditures over the revenue by about $13,800. They did want to make sure that they did include it, especially with Wine Walk being a great contributor to their revenue. They felt it was a worthwhile cause, especially coming out of COVID, wanting to make sure that they put those events back on. So the expenditures which exceed the revenue would be covered by the surplus funds. Next slide, please. So this is just a look at what their fund balance looks like. We've got the actual numbers in the end of the fiscal year 2020. It ended with about just under $99,000. This last fiscal year of 21, it finished with $116,487. We are estimating that this year they'll close with about just under $104,000. And then with that deficiency for next fiscal year, they'll close in right under $90,000. So they do have a sufficient amount of funding available. And just as a reminder, in the past, council has recommended a minimum fund balance of $10,000. Next slide, please. So this is a look at the dates for the renewal of the assessments. In February, the board approved their 23 BID budget. Earlier this month, they approved the annual report and recommended it for approval to City Council. So tonight, City Council is asked to review that, approve their annual report, and adopt a resolution of intent to levy and collect assessments in the upcoming fiscal year. On March 28th or by or before, noticing will be made, and that will include sending out the resolution as well as instructions on what's coming up next with the public meeting and the public hearing, and that will be mailed out to all of the affected businesses. It will also be published in the newspaper. Then on May 10th, City Council will have its first public meeting to hear any testimony on the annual plan and the assessments. And on May 24th, the City Council will have their public hearing where the protest votes will be tabulated, and in the absence of greater than 50% of protest votes, a resolution to collect the assessments can be adopted. Next slide, please. So that completes this report, and the City Council recommendation tonight is to approve the fiscal year 23 BID annual report and adopt a City Council resolution entitled "A Resolution of the City Council Announcing Intentions to Levy and Collect Assessments for the fiscal year 23 for the Glendora Village Business Improvement District." And with that, I return it to council for questions.
Thank you, Valerie. Councilmember Thompson.
Thank you. Thank you for the very good update. I do support the two things here at the end, and want to state that I do want to encourage the bid board to think bigger, to have some vision. It seems like we're satisfied doing the same old things, And I think that I know that I have, and some other folks have dreamed and talked about expanding the boundaries that the bid encompasses. I think that's a worthy endeavor to explore. And I just want to once again encourage the bid board to become more active and engaged in terms of the vision of what the process of the bid can really be. I think there's a lot more that can be done, and I'm certainly going to support this. But I would hope that that further work could be done on enhancing what is being done. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Friedendahl.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Valerie, for a great report. I echo many of Mendel's comments on my thoughts that the bid needs to expand its footprint and look to do so, bringing in new members and new businesses and expand those opportunities. And as the vision of the downtown grows in many different directions in the future, first, last mile considerations, the bid needs to look bigger. I do applaud their choice for the event coordinator, because I recognize that their staff is also trying to run their businesses. However, I think that the bid is on too much staff support. And Valerie, you're a hero for carrying them along and supporting them and giving them guidance and those responsible items. But maybe they need to do a little more self-sustaining effort in those areas and be reporting and sharing back their successes and enjoying what the community will offer. I also think that the bid can help in some of the items, and looking at an agenda item we're doing later about the outdoor dining and those things, and the bid can help with some of that as opposed to being idle on it. So I think their voice is important, and they're missing an opportunity to make that voice stronger. So I support the resolution as we're going, or the recommendations, but I would like to see the bid expand. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Alawas.
No questions or comments. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Boyer.
Thank you, Karen. And, following up a little bit on Mendel and David's comments, one of the things we got to remember is the Business Improvement District Board of Directors is just that. They are the board. The membership is the actual business owners. And in my opinion, we need more business owners involved in what's happening in the village. It's one of those things that the bid is coming up on 13 years old this year since it was first put together. And I think sometimes it's easy to get into this routine, and the events and everything that are put on in the village are great, and everybody in Glendora loves them. But I think the business owners and the board needs to understand the support they have from the city and from the city council as far as engaging in some new ideas. The idea of taking on the expansion, there may not be an understanding of how to do that or what the first steps might be. So I would just like to ask that I'd love to see more business owners getting involved. I'm really enjoying watching the next generation come in and coming in with some new ideas, but don't hesitate to reach out and ask if we want to take that next step, if we want to look at different things, and if we want to look at some expansion. We're here to help in any way that we can. So I'd just like to put that offer out there, but I am very supportive of this resolution, and hats off to the board. And I do like the event coordinator. The amount of time and effort that goes into running some of these events takes time away from their businesses. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Do we have anyone wishing to make a motion?
I'll move to accept the recommendations 1 and 2 on the presentation.
Second.
Thank you. That is a Motion by Councilmember Friedendahl, a second by Councilmember Thompson. I'll take a roll call vote. Councilmember Alawas.
Yes.
Councilmember Thompson.
Yes.
Councilmember Friedendahl.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Boyer. Oh, did we lose him? I think he's frozen. Mayor Pro Tem Boyer, I think you're muted.
Yeah, he's turned it.
There we go.
I'm sorry, I lost my sound for a second. Where are we at?
We're taking a roll call vote on approving.
Okay.
this item.
Yes.
Thank you. And Mayor Davis.
Yes.
Great. That passes 5-0. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Valerie. All right, that takes us to item 13. Glendora People Movement Project Prioritization and Award of Contract Services Agreement to Alta Planning and Design. And tonight to report on that, Transportation Manager Stephen Mateer. Welcome, Stephen.
Great. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, City Council. My name is Stephen Mateer, the Transportation Manager. The item before you is two actions. One is to prioritize our projects for our people movement as part of an early delivery phase. The second action is to award a design contract to Alta Planning and Design to move forward on the urban trail project along the San Dimas Wash, which is an extension of the existing trail. Next slide, please. So for some background, these projects have existed separately for a number of years now. The urban trails go back about 10 years, starting with the Parks Master Plan, which identified the flood control channels as a major recreational priority for the city. Since then, the city has delivered 1 mile of urban trail near Louis Pompey Park. In addition to that, the city in 2018 worked with LA County Metro to develop our first last mile plan. Since 2018, up until recently, staff has done staff and council have done a number of prioritization and outreach actions, including briefings to a number of commissions, civic bodies, school district, also as well as doing a number of demonstration projects, two to be exact, on Glendora Avenue. This really culminated together in a joint project called People Movement during the opportunity to submit congressional earmarks. This is a recognition that these really are an interrelated network of transportation improvements across the city. And this would garner a number of regional and national attention, which they have. Next slide, please. So the map on the right is the overall people movement at full build out. It's approximately $21 million of investment with over 10 miles of improvements. Currently, the city has secured $6.6 million from the SGV COG. We have 1.5 million in CIP. Also included, not included here, but was also important is $300,000 from Rivers and Mountains Conservancy for construction on phase 2 of the San Dimas Wash. At this point, we're asking council to help staff identify priorities for delivering this first phase, which will utilize the 6.6 million from the SGV COG. Next slide. So we've prepared 4 scenarios for council consideration. Staff is recommending scenario 1, which includes design and construction for Glendora Avenue, Little Dalton Wash, and San Dimas Wash. In this scenario, San Dimas Wash would proceed first since it's furthest along in design. This would allow us to also start the environmental and design process for Glendora Avenue and Little Dalton Wash. And I'll note that the environmental design process take anywhere from 12 months to 18 months to complete. So there is a lot of time for substantial outreach and further refinement of these concepts. Currently, compared to what city staff estimates that we have on hand, there is a funding gap here of $1.8 million. We recommend this option, as noted in the staff report, due to the connectivity, the regional balance, as well as aligning with a number of policy goals in the council. Next slide, please. Scenario 2 is very similar to scenario 1. This swaps out Glendora Avenue for Foothill Boulevard. This is another great option. We did not recommend this one only because Foothill Boulevard has not received the same level of outreach as Glendora Avenue has. However, we know from speaking with Citrus College, as well as Emanate Health, there is support for improving east-west connectivity along Foothill Boulevard here. Again, in all these scenarios, we do have a funding gap, but this one is $1.5 million and a total cost of around $10 million. Next slide, please. Scenario 3, these are where we get into larger ticket items. You can consider scenario 3 to be really a build out of the core first last mile projects So this would be Foothill Boulevard and Glendora Avenue, as well as San Dimas Wash. And we added in the Big Dalton design because we feel that this is probably of all the urban trails, has the most regional benefit, regional connectivity, and having design completed would set us up to go after state and federal grants. This does require a much more substantial investment of additional $3.3 million. The total cost here is $11.7 million. Next slide. And by contrast, scenario 4, this is the build out of the urban trail system. So this would be the Big Dalton, Little Dalton, and San Dimas washes. And this would kick off design for Glendora Avenue. Again, same logic here, that having design completed would tee us up for, or put us in a better position for grant funding. This would require an additional $3.2 million to complete as proposed here. And the total cost would be $11.7 million. Next slide. The second half of our action tonight is to award a design contract. Completing phase 2 and 3 has been a major goal for the council and staff. This now allows us to proceed with that, given that we have the grant from the SGV COG. Based upon our procurement, we did a RFP. We had 3 bidders. We recommended Alta Planning and Design. They had the highest score and the second lowest cost. The total contract value for design and right-of-way services is $463,000. To fund this, we propose utilizing the CIP budget and combining both the urban trail and first last mile projects into one CIP. Next slide. So in terms of next steps, pending council decision tonight, we can issue a notice to proceed to Alta. Also with our prioritization, we can go to the COG and execute our funding agreement once we receive it, hopefully by May or June of this year. We'll also be looking to host design workshops. One of the really exciting things about Alta's proposal is to not only do a traditional workshop, but to do a pop-up event in Gladstone Park, similar to a demonstration project, where we can open up the flood control channel, have residents come out and touch and feel the project. Also, too, this would allow us to proceed with issuing RFPs to start the environmental and design process for the selected corridors. Next slide, please. So here are the staff recommended actions before you. And with that, I can take any questions that you have.
Hey, thank you, Stephen. All right, Councilmember Friedendahl.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Stephen. Great projects. I'm going to tell you right up front, I like the scenario 4, just because it gets all the urban trails going and gets that going and seen, but that's my champagne budget and a beer, desire and a water budget. So I do like the scenario 1 because it's giving us a chance to give the people something more right now in areas that can be utilized. I do have a question on the trails, though. We've talked about, and I've enjoyed the piece that's completed, and it is the finest asphalt road in the town, that's no doubt. But is there any way that to maybe stretch our dollar, could we do a durable surface like DG or something so that it's more of a trail as opposed to a paved water full-on asphalt type pathway? Would that, and gives us a chance to, okay, it's an urban trail, we're outside, we're walking along, and clearly obviously not have boulders and obstacles in a way, but is that an option, or do requirements say that it has to be hard surface?
No, it's a great question, Councilmember. That is certainly an option. I would say for the San Dimas wash, I would recommend keeping it paved just to match the look and feel. Generally speaking, though, a paved surface is easier for people that are in, wheelchairs, walkers to use. I think, the idea here is these aren't just recreational facilities. These could be used for kids going to school, people getting around town. So my preference would be to have them be paved just from a safety standpoint. That these are really something that people of all ages and abilities could use.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you. No more questions.
Thank you. Councilmember Alawas.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Stephen, for your report. The 4 different scenarios that are there, is it the same price no matter which scenario we choose for them to do the planning?
It depends on which project we're planning for. There is different prices depending on, like Little Dalton compared to Glendora or Foothill, and then also with Big Dalton.
Okay, so for the funds that you're asking for us to approve tonight is only for for scenario 1?
Correct. Yeah. So we're only asking to appropriate funds to do design on the San Dimas wash. We're not looking to award any contract or spend any money on the other phases. What we're asking for is a direction from the council on what to prioritize so that we can go out to procure, work with our funding agencies on, what our priorities are to deliver.
So for those that haven't been following this for the last few years when we're working on this, can you expand a little bit more for those that aren't intimately familiar with what we're trying to do with this?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the overall vision of these improvements really is to create a network where someone who maybe doesn't want to drive or isn't able to drive can safely get around town, can connect to services either in Azusa or Covina, connect to transit, and they can do that in a safe manner. Right now, Glendora has, no bike lanes except for the urban trail. And we've heard from a number of residents that they'd like to have more facilities like this to get around. And really the focus with the urban trails is these, from east to west in a southerly direction, provide, separated facilities. They connect to a number of schools, and really what they look like are these paved paths with sign markers, landscaping, rest areas. First, last mile, those are more focused on getting people to and from the Gold Line station. We put those we recommended those corridors based on feedback, and that includes things like bicycle lanes, curb extensions, signage and wayfinding, really things that make streets, safer for all users.
So in this first scenario would include the Dutch intersection on Foothill and Glendora, as well as the raised bike paths down Glendora South?
Correct, yes.
Okay, and as we spoke before, is it possible to look at the parking on the west side of Glendora Avenue to change that to parallel parking so that you can match the east side with the raised bike path?
Through the design phase, we can look at different parking configurations. I mean, I think one of the hard lessons we learned during the demo project was the importance of angled parking on Glendora Avenue. So I think we'd have to understand the trade-offs. If we went to parallel parking, would the community support that? What are the issues? Again, there are some benefits to it, but that's why we go through a design process so we can work out these different options.
Do we have any feedback from the businesses there? Because we'd probably lose parking.
If we maintain angled parking, there would be no loss in parking, but going to parallel, I think based on the temporary design, I think there was a reduction of about 40%, which we know wasn't really popular. However, when we've looked at parking utilization, street parking is not in high demand in that stretch, I would say. There's plenty of off-street parking. So really what we want to do is find a consensus approach on what is the correct parking number in that stretch.
This question is for Adam. On page 322, the contract is all executed except for your signature. Is that normal?
Yeah, so my signature is typically one of the last ones to sign. That it's not valid until that occurs with the city clerk's final approval. So it's routed for signatures, and that way the council knows it's been vetted for proper purchasing protocols and that the vendor is in agreement with the terms and the conditions presented. So upon city council approval, when necessary, the final signatures are executed.
So what would happen if we would have picked a different scenario?
Go back and take a look at different funding amounts, different exhibitive services, but I believe some of those costs have already been estimated in the options that are before you.
Well, and I'll note, I'm sorry, Councilmember, go ahead.
Go ahead, Stephen.
All four scenarios do include the San Dimas wash to complete. So it would really be adding in a fifth scenario would jeopardize, award of the contract.
All right. Thank you. It's all the questions I have.
Thank you. Councilmember Thompson.
Madam Mayor, thank you. David and I had a very extensive and detailed update today, and so the questions that I had were answered there. I do support one, and I support that because of the obviously the goal line, the station being built, the timing that we need to sync up what we're going to do there. So I think it's good. I do agree with David that wish we had more funds to complete the urban trail, but I think for the dollars spent, this would be the best choice. So that's where I'm at. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
Thanks, Karen. Stephen, I'd shared with you when we talked, one of the concerns I have with the Glendora Avenue project is that I can foresee that Glendora Avenue is going to look dramatically different 10 years from now than it does today. And I guess, the question is, as we take a look at this, you can look at it two different ways. The improvements that we're talking about making could benefit the redevelopment or changes that would be taking place along there, or the redevelopment and changes could make what is actually needed different. I look at the fact that if you go from Glendora or from Foothill down to Route 66 on Glendora Avenue, we've got residences, we've got homes, we've got office buildings, we've got a post office, we've got Verizon down there, we have City Hall, a shopping center. There are so many different scenarios. I do have concerns with moving on Glendora Avenue before we know what Glendora Avenue might be looking like 10 years from now. What I would hate to have happen would be that, we do this and then we're looking back and going, wait a second, now that this has been done, it actually hinders some of the possibilities that might be happening there. The other question I have is, I don't see anywhere on here a design for the Foothill Boulevard project. Is that not, is there not a cost estimate for that, or was that just an oversight?
I'll take your second question first, if that's okay.
Yeah, please.
So with Foothill Boulevard, there's a couple of reasons we didn't put that on the list. One is just, again, that the level of outreach on Foothill, I would say, is not at the same level of Glendora Avenue. The second is that Foothill Boulevard, from a regional grant perspective, is a lot more attractive. It connects to rail stations, theoretically, connects to Azusa, connects to colleges and the hospital. So we really felt like that would be an excellent choice for a later regional grant cycle. That's currently not available within the time frame that we're looking at here. That's not to say it can't be added in or that we couldn't go out and try to secure those funds. It's just that we were trying to, match the funding envelope as close as we could here.
Okay, and then I'm going to ask you to look into your crystal ball. What type of time frame do you think? Let's say you had the opportunity to obtain the funding for any of these scenarios. What type of time frame do you think we're looking at to complete something?
I would say between planning, or finishing design and construction, we're looking at probably 2 to 3 years.
Okay, so it could be completed by the time the Gold Line station is ready to open and the train starts running.
Yeah, that's the ideal.
That's good to know. And then David, just to your point, part of how this conversation began about the urban trails was a request from residents to have, we have a lot of trails and not everybody's a Boy Scout. And we get up in the trails, up in the mountains, and you're going up some pretty steep inclines. And I just discovered I hiked Big Dalton a couple of weeks ago with my wife, and we must have had some sort of an earthquake because it was a lot steeper than it used to be. So something definitely has happened there. So the whole idea behind this urban trail project was to make more accessible trails for everybody, and that's sort of where the beginning of this conversation took place. So anyway, Stephen, I appreciate all the effort you're putting into this. I love any of these. Scenario number one, I want to support you guys. That's what you would like to see happen. But I do just have some concerns with Glendora Avenue of us maybe really putting some thought into what the future of Glendora Avenue may look like as we move forward. Because if we lose parking down there, that could very much determine what we're going to be doing as we continue to build. And we just reached out to the Business Improvement District and asked them to start looking into expanding the village. The obvious expansion would be to go south of Foothill all the way down to Route 66. So anyway, that's just my thoughts. Thank you.
Well, I agree with you, Mayor Pro Tem, in that we have to think about parking, but I don't think of it in terms of that street parking. I think there's other dreams and visions for parking to occur other places. So I see that first last mile as being part of the future. I don't have a crystal ball, but as I look at the hydro flask here, I see that the future for how we want to get people out of their cars and back and forth to the train. So I see that would work, and they can park and some of our other visionary plans for the future. I would love to say scenario 4 or scenario 4B, where we do everything in one fell swoop. But since you're asking for scenario 1, then I'm happy to go with what you're recommending to us. So,
Hey, I do have one other question, if I may, Karen.
yes.
Stephen, on the Little Dalton Wash Trail, it stops at Finkbeiner Park and doesn't. I know there's been conversation in the past about taking it all the way to the college. Has that plan been scrapped? I know it would be extremely difficult to try to go over that way, but is that still under consideration, or has that been scrapped?
Yeah, what you see on the map, that's what we think based on existing right-of-way is feasible. When it ends at Finkbeiner, it goes through that alleyway behind a couple homes, and then it goes through the village. And in a lot of places, there's property lined up to the wash. It would require us to build a bridge over the wash to get to a feasible width or section of the wash. So it's not to say that future sections couldn't be built. We just looked at our first look here as the piece from Colby Trail down to Finkbeiner was the most feasible. It wouldn't require substantial right of way or more expensive engineering. I would like to get to the college because that's a huge destination. And I think, things like Foothill Boulevard, that's a nice complement that would accomplish the same goal within that right of way.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so a call from the motion.
I'll move.
The Mayor, I would move that we approve 1, 2, and 3.
And I believe Mr. Friedendahl seconded it.
Yes, he did.
Okay.
Thank you. That is a motion by Councilmember Thompson, a second by Councilmember Friedendahl. Take a roll call vote. Councilmember Alawas,
Yes.
Councilmember Thompson,
Yes.
Councilmember Friedendahl,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Boyer,
Yes.
and Mayor Davis.
Yes.
And that passes 5-0. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephen. All right, that takes us to item 14, Glendora Outdoor Dining. And tonight to report on that to Management Analyst Vanessa McKell. Welcome, Vanessa.
Thank you, council members. Thank you. Okay. Next slide, please. So today I'll be giving a presentation on our outdoor dining program and processes. Next slide, please. A little bit of overview. We would like to implement a new updated program, which would involve an amendment to the Glendora Municipal Code. Also, we would like to discuss some issues and next steps. Next slide, please. So last year, we implemented the parklet program, which we installed 7 parklets in the village. And it's now been 6 months, and we've looked at that and also at the current outdoor dining and realized we should update our program to a more efficient and uniform process. This way, combining sidewalk dining and also parklet dining into one. We did originally have a concept of a new manual called Dining Glendora, where we combined both. However, we are still in the drafting process. So we're in the very early stages, and we have actually realized an alternative method of just a packet, an outdoor dining permit packet for any interested businesses to apply and follow. However, just like the manual, this new outdoor dining permit would provide information and process for obtaining an outdoor dining application. This is an opportunity to address and resolve any, outdoor dining or parklet issues that we've come across and seen. Next slide, please. As mentioned before, it will combine sidewalk and parklet dining, which are the two forms of dining within the city, into a universal outdoor dining application. The outdoor dining permit will replace the encroachment permit requirement that is in the Glendora Municipal Code. Also, we would like to introduce annual fees, which, we, I guess, feel are required to have a successful program, just because city staff does spend time on it. Next slide, please. Part of the update to the outdoor dining program would be an amendment to the Glendora Municipal Code. This would reflect our new or updated outdoor dining process and also include language regarding parklet dining. Again, like I mentioned before, requirement of the encroachment permit will change to a requirement of an outdoor dining permit, just because an encroachment permit is a little bit different than what we are trying to accomplish. Next slide, please. A few issues regarding the outdoor dining would be, we have had some requests for entertainment use, such as live music and television. Also, we have had requests to use the city's electrical box. Staff has mentioned that to be able to have the entertainment use, any business must possess a conditional use permit. So if any business would like to have the entertainment, they can apply for a conditional use permit, and we can grant that on a case-by-case basis, of course. Also, another, I wouldn't say issue, but item to be aware of is this entertainment use would only be available to businesses operating a parklet, just because parklets give that space necessary and needed for the entertainment. So businesses only having sidewalk dining would not be able to partake in that. Also, we would like to limit the impact to neighbors, to the neighbors of anybody that would have the said entertainment use. Next slide, please. So our next steps, we are still, of course, in the drafting and creation process of, updating the Glendora Municipal Code and also introducing a new outdoor dining forms and checklists. But our next steps are to finalize an ordinance to amend the Glendora Code. That's most important. And then to follow, we will be creating and adopting the new outdoor dining permit forms. Next slide, please. So staff recommendation is that the City Council please provide input and comment on proposed update and revision of the current outdoor dining program. And with that, I can take questions. And I do also invite Jeff, our Community Development Director, to add or answer any questions as well.
Thank you, Vanessa. Councilmember Friedendahl.
Okay. Thank you, Vanessa.
And right there.
Well, I somehow knew that was coming. Thank you, Vanessa, for a great report. And I want to qualify my comments with recognizing that your team and certainly the entire city has we are years ahead of some of our neighboring cities in the things we've done to work to sustain their business and get them over the hump in the last couple of years of struggle. And we've learned, hey, that's a great success. So we've made permanent opportunities and they're beautiful. I think that those are very important and valuable. And some of our neighboring cities have had those outdoor opportunities removed. They had no assistance in getting those outdoor opportunities. So I think the businesses there should be very jealous and envious of what our businesses enjoy. While you shared a key point that we started this 6 months ago and going live, it's been in the works much longer than that when the first concepts came about, but it went live Labor Day weekend. And while we have an agreement, and I realize everything needs some adjustment and fine tuning, and okay, it worked for a while, but can we improve on it? So here we are, that's good. I think that we've had some of our participants extend their opportunities a bit and create some things. And, you know, I like to use the word homestead some property, if you will, and expand beyond what we might have originally thought about. So to look at this and to come back tonight and say, what should we do to fine tune our vision is excellent. But some of the things that I think our businesses need to work on is recognizing what did they do outside the box, and can we reel it in or capitalize on some of the better ideas and then prove some folks. But I want to start with, I think we need to look at this as an outdoor business opportunity, not just a food-related business opportunity. We've got businesses that, yes, they serve food, but they don't have a parklet. So then they started expanding into the sidewalks. I measured today, that famous ribbon of sidewalk, if you will, is about 8 feet wide from the building to the cosmetic brick ribbon. So we've had some encroachments in that, and it was necessary when it was such necessary, but now it's become a norm and people are deciding that's the way they want to conduct their business. So navigating the sidewalks has become very difficult. We have folks without a parklet, but they're using more space, adding tables to the space, lots of things. I think we need to address that. And I don't expect your staff should be the enforcement of that. So hence my comment earlier about would like to see the bid get more involved. I think the bid members could help encourage themselves and get us on board and not rely on, you know, the staff or code enforcement to have to go by and remind them of what they agreed to when they set up their dining opportunity. I think we need to look strongly at umbrellas, umbrella placement, shade, lighting, consistent standard look. Because we spent a lot of money to make this uniform and get to a point where it was to be proud of, and we did that. But then we start modifying it and personalizing it to the point where a lot of it starting to look temporary, and I don't think that was our intent. So I think we should fine tune those. I would like to recommend, for example, on the sidewalks, no less than 5 feet clearance, not having umbrellas in the middle of a sidewalk. If you have your draft proposal talks about sidewalk dining in 2 scenarios, one that in a place that serves alcohol, one that does not serve alcohol. The alcohol version adds cording or barriers or some kind of a rope system or something. Well, that's pushing out into that walkable space. So I think we need a buy-in from the vendors, the applicants, on what they're willing to do or should be allowed to do. How far into their neighbor's territory does that go? We've got some joint parklets. Those are working well. We've got restaurants that have expanded across several business fronts. And maybe that's not the direction we want. So I support, we need to give you guidance and we need to make it simple so you can sell it, get subscription to it, and have it enforceable without a lot of discretionary choice made by the people doing that. So those are just some of my thoughts. Hopefully we can attain that, and that my fellow colleagues will agree that we need to fine tune some of that as far as details on aesthetics. What do umbrellas that are provided by the applicants look like? What does lighting look like? Take the best of the options and help them succeed to get to where we want our parklets to be. I'll stop there and see what the others might offer as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Thompson.
Thank you. I agree with everything that David said. I think he said it very, very well. And in deference to time, I'll not repeat all of those. I do think that enforcement needs to be defined. Who's going to do that? And the briefing that that we had this morning, I think that we talked about that, but I think that the draft book needs to define that. I do think that the fee either needs to include power or other power source needs to be allowed to be used. I would be open to TV's entertainment on a limited sort of oversight. I do think that that can be a very enjoyable thing, but I think it can spread and be more than what we want. So I think there needs to be some very good rules there. For the shading area, we've, as has been said, we've invested 50 grand, say, in each of the parklets, and very nice shade tools to be used. Umbrellas are very, very nice, but I think there needs to be some level of sort of a standard. I would not want political things to be used. Umbrellas that would encourage things such as smoking pot, vaping, things that are not conducive to one's health. And so I think there needs to be some standardized things there. I like the openness that our downtown has. I would hope that would be allowed and continue, and that we would not allow bushes or trees or shrubs or anything like that to impede the openness and the just the kind of vibe that gives. And I do agree with David that there needs to be rules that are enforced on how much of the sidewalk is used for a business versus for those who are walking. And I think that we've been a little lax there, and I think that we need to define that. So I do like the guide. I have read that, and I know it's a draft, but I think it's a great start. And we are seen by many of having the best downtown that anybody has within this area. People who have come, and I understand there's cities that are lined up to come and see what we have built, are looking at us, and we have a standard, but we need to make sure that standard is done right. And so this is a good step. And so those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Alawas.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Vanessa, for your report. There's a lot going on, a lot of moving parts out there. And everyone just loves these parklets. I mean, we get so many compliments, not only just from the folks that here in town, but from other folks visiting. They come from far and wide to come and dine with us outside. With that being said, when do you think this policy will come back to council? Jeff, Vanessa?
Yeah, I think for the first, hopefully, internally, I think this is a very early look at the concepts we're thinking about, because we did know that the council really wanted to get this in front of them quickly. We're hoping we can get internally a working draft of the policy, at least the framework of the ordinance and regulations by the end of April. And then the ordinance change or amendment is going to go through the planning commission first, because it'll involve changes to the zoning code. So we can get that done, maybe in June, come to the council late June, early July. That'd be sort of a general time frame I'd be shooting for.
Okay, so in the meantime, as Mendel mentioned, a lot of the restaurateurs down there want power and need power for lighting, for safety issues and things of that nature. Is there a way of fast tracking that so they can tie into those boxes and put something together?
With power, I mean, that's sort of, we're going to have to coordinate with that with Public Works, because they're the ones who control those facilities. And we have not yet had any really in-depth discussions on how, the power sources or the city's power supply can be made available safely to people who were not, part of using it for a city purpose. So we haven't even delved into that at this point.
Because as is right now, I believe the policy is they have to use LED solar powered lights.
Correct. The parklet, the guidelines and agreement that everybody signed says that they would have to use solar LED lights.
And that just doesn't give off enough light in the evening. So I had two other questions that came in from the folks out in the restaurants. What type of dividers or screening is acceptable? You've seen some of these things that have the fake ivy walls, things like that. What do you think would be acceptable for the parklets?
In my view, I think that, keeping an open plan is probably better. I think one of the reasons that the parklets have been so successful is because people driving by or walking by see people outside dining, which attracts more people. I think tall barriers or dividers would probably detract from that effect.
Even if they were low?
In my opinion, I don't think we should allow people to put anything else out other than table chairs and umbrellas.
All right. And the other question is the bollards that are out there. Those haven't been so successful.
What about the bollards?
They haven't been so successful. They want to know what your long-term plans are, because a lot of them kind of got run
over. So Jeff, do you mind talking from a building standard standpoint, what we have to do via the building code? I think they have been successful to some extent, stopping people from hitting the parklets as they hit them instead. But I think we've tried to play around with the sort of planters in other areas to help stop and improve safety. But Jeff, do you mind talking a little bit about the building standards?
For the bollards?
Yeah. And the placement of some of those?
Well, I think those are sort of more traffic control standards they have to do. And that's something that's outside of my area of expertise.
Yeah, I can answer that. Yeah, the placement of that's why we had placement of the bollards, really on the corners of the parklet. We installed wheel stops as well at various locations. The idea here is that, if a car is at slow speed, which is the speed limit in the village, we would not have a catastrophic collision. I would say I know a couple bollards in, maybe one or two locations have been repeatedly hit. But again, in a lot of those cases, I mean, just from personally standing there watching it, there are a lot of inattentive driving going on in the village. The mid-block crossing signs get hit routinely. A lot of times it's just a matter of paying attention will keep you from hitting a bollard. So to that end, if the bollards are getting hit and not the parklet, I would say they're functioning as intended.
So are they going to be, you're going to continue with the same style bollard?
Would like to keep it because it matches. Ideally, we'd find something maybe near, made here that's easier to get if needed to be replaced. But the nice thing is they match the colors of the respective parklets. So that's something we can look at too, is, finding local options for that.
And they're designed to break and not break your car?
Well, they're designed to stop a car from rolling through a parklet. So I would say I'd rather a car get damaged than a parklet. But again, that's
For a person.
per person.
Right.
I was being facetious because when they hit those, they kind of like rip out of the ground and they're done.
Yeah. We did bolt them in because, again, that was really the way to get them in fast, and also to provide, a decent level of protection. We can also look at concrete mounted ones, which are much harder to get knocked over.
Okay. I believe Public Works already has rules in place for the width of the sidewalks, and it has to be on the outside of the banner of the brick banner. That's correct, is it not?
I think that is part of the current guidelines, yes.
Okay, so it's just a matter of enforcement if they're on the other side of the banner? No new rules need to be put in place?
Yeah, we would need to enforce that.
All right. Also, some restaurants that don't have parklets have entertainment on the sidewalk. So if you put this in place, are you going to ban them from something they've been doing for a long time?
Nobody is currently permitted to have entertainment on the sidewalk.
So has this been an oversight on our behalf?
Or just the lack of enforcement?
I think too, there's a conversation to be had about cultural norms that have been allowed to occur for many, many years. And I think we're really looking forward to this discussion, is understanding those and getting some direction from the council on what you would like us to tighten up and what you would like us to look at ways to permit. As it was said earlier in the presentation, some businesses by CUP can apply for entertainment as allowed in the city's code. I don't believe we've issued one of those CUP modifications to date, which would allow for something like unamplified music in the public right of way.
I think unamplified music would probably be acceptable. We don't want to have competing bands or entertainment out there. Then becomes another issue, another problem. But I don't want to keep them from having entertainment, particularly some of those that don't even have a parklet. They don't get that opportunity. So maybe we can look at that and come to an equitable resolution. That's all the questions I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thanks, Karen. The first question I have is the Business Improvement District been involved in this conversation up to this point?
No, this has been, really just a city initiated effort to try to get a handle on the outdoor dining and the parklets.
Okay, appreciate it. David made a lot of comments, and personally, I'm going to be a lot more blunt. The taxpayers of the city of Glendora gave gifts to the restaurants in the village by way of fully funding these parklets and the umbrellas that we put in there. We're looking at upwards of $70,000 to $80,000 investment in every one of these restaurants. And then the restaurants are turning around, they're taking advantage of the opportunity. They're expanding outside of where they need to be. And these are extremely intelligent people who are trying to run businesses, and they're trying to figure out ways to, maximize their ability to create revenue for themselves. But at the same time, the only reason we're having this discussion is because it got out of hand. That's it. We're having the discussion of having to do this because it got out of hand. I would like to see, first off, I'm going to ask my neighbors down here in the village that all of the restaurants go out, look at the fronts of your businesses, and where your chairs and tables should be. Get them out of the areas where they shouldn't be. It's that simple. If you don't know, I don't know what to tell you, but where they should and where they shouldn't be. Secondly, I'd like to see the Business Improvement District be more involved in this. I think this is one of those things that the Business Improvement District should be meeting with the restaurant owners and coming up with these recommendations and bringing it back to us and saying, hey guys, what do you think of this? But the bottom line is we're having this discussion for one reason and one reason only, because people are taking advantage of an opportunity that we gave to them. So my ask right now is for the Business Improvement District and the restaurant owners in the village to get more involved in this process, talk amongst themselves and talk with our staff as to what will work for them and what may or may not need to be done. Because that's who we're relying on. We want all of these restaurants to be successful, but at the same time, we want everything to be safe and manageable for everyone walking through the village. And we want the businesses that do not have parklets to not have their areas impeded on and, you know, their customers interrupted as people are trying to walk through. So that would be my recommendation, is that let's put this back on the people where it belongs. They need to be involved in this conversation and come back to us with some ideas.
If I can just really quick, and I know Moises is going to chime in here too. Go ahead, Moises, about the bid involvement. We agree the involvement in holding people accountable. Just wanted to provide a little clarity. I think maybe there was a mischaracterization of the bid's involvement.
Yeah, good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council. Just a point of clarification. The concepts that we're discussing tonight were in fact presented to the Business Improvement District, and we solicited their feedback on it, hoping that they would provide some feedback and kind of serve as that intermediary body to address a lot of the issues that you've just brought up, so that they play a much more active role to that. They did provide some feedback on it, but I'll defer to Jeff on characterizing or contextualizing the feedback that they provided on the outdoor dining program.
I watched that meeting. You got crickets. They didn't choose to entertain anything. Oh yeah, that's nice, fine, moved on, and left the presenters standing there with empty-handed. It was challenging.
But my point is, nobody knows what is needed and what is best for the village than the business owners that are down here. And they need to be more involved in this process. So that's the point I'm trying to make. And the restaurant owners know what they should be doing and what they shouldn't be doing. And I don't blame anybody for trying to stretch things a little bit and stretch the rules a little, but common sense is we know where we've crossed lines, and I think we need to address that as business owners. The other question that I had is there any consideration being put into us discussing or reviewing any type of outdoor dining ordinance outside of the village? And particularly when it's dealing with businesses that are on private property where they might be using parking spaces or something like that for outdoor dining. It's been such a success in the village. I'm just wondering if we can encourage people to embrace this outside of the village and maybe help with creating opportunities that they may not realize that would be supported.
You know, in some, it's not the outdoor dining is generally encouraged, and in some, you know, like for example, in the Route 66 specific plan and Arrow Highway, it is encouraged and it does occur. There are a number of business locations that have patios and those types of things that have been, you know, built as part of a restaurant in various locations. When it comes to using, you know, existing parking lots, portions of parking lots, loading areas and so forth that have been set up by a few businesses in response to COVID, you know, those aren't that type of outdoor dining in the parking areas are not, you know, generally encouraged for a number of different reasons. But we haven't looked at this point as making those types of things permanent. You know, we certainly wouldn't prohibit anybody at this point from coming to us and saying, you know, I want to convert permanently, you know, I'm going to pour more concrete and extend, you know, the front of your business into parking spaces. I think one of the questions we'd ask would be, well, okay, do you have enough parking in the lot to support the business before you start removing spaces, those types of things. But we certainly wouldn't prohibit somebody from taking a look and doing that, and possibly even, granting them approval to do something like that.
So do we have a process in place if somebody was interested, if businesses outside the village were interested in that?
We do not have a permitting process for private property. We just don't require it.
Okay. Okay, well, asking for feedback, that's my 2 bits, and I appreciate all the work that's been put into this so far. And the bottom line is a lot of things being said and talked about here, but this has been a extremely successful endeavor. And we just need to make sure that the end product is what we all envisioned. And I do appreciate the work everybody's done.
Thank you. Yes, and I think just following up on Councilmember Thompson talking about, particular types of signage, I think if it was something as general as no commercial signage, that would cover it, whether it's Bud Light or, your own buds of marijuana or whatever it is, that I think if you just said commercial advertising, that it would cover a wide range of things. One thing I thought about with the utilities and them having access to those outlets is that when we have the lights on the trees, at least one outlet in every box is utilized. So there'd have to be some management of that they didn't monopolize that for when the trees needed to get plugged in. Or, we'd have those 3-pronged things that people stick in with all the plugs. That was the only thought that I thought of in terms of the outlets. And then just trying to have some consistency. I don't want to micromanage how people do things, but also it would be nice to have some appearance that was not distracting. I think, any barriers, like Mr. Kugel said, around the outside is distracting and takes away from what the intent of the outdoor dining is. So I would not be a fan of that. And the entertainment, I think would be great to allow, but of course, and those few parklets that are shared by 2 places, just trying to figure out ways to manage that they both didn't plan for entertainment on the same day, and you had that issue on the parklet. So
are you saying we have to have a good neighbor policy for parklets?
Yeah, I would say, especially when it comes to the entertainment, because I could see where that might be a little messy on some Friday evenings or other popular times. So, but yes, sir.
Madam Mayor, can I chime in on this?
Yes, go for it.
I've told everybody that I can talk to about this. I came to your Empty Bowl event and walked around the downtown, and it is remarkable. So my office is in El Segundo, and we go to lunch in Manhattan Beach and Redondo Beach, all these wealthy beach cities. Their parklets are put together with spit and baling wire compared to what you guys have done. I mean, you're victims of a remarkable success. And these are wealthy beach cities, and they have nothing compared to what you have. So it's nice to have the problem you have, but it's remarkable. Your downtown is absolutely spectacular. So.
No, I would.
So you don't want to kill a good thing. You want to deal with it, but.
No, I had some friends from Orange County visit last week, and they were taking photos in the village because they were so impressed. So, yes, no, thank you to Vanessa and Jeff and Stephen and everybody that's been part of all of that. And so in terms of us giving you input, have we given you more input than you need, or is there something more specific that you would like tonight?
I think we have quite a bit of feedback on ensuring proper paths of travel, ensuring the right of way is clear, looking at some of our ordinances and rules, looking at signage that's misplaced, working with the businesses, really going back to the bid and talking to them about the communication with their membership and what that looks like building in enforcement provisions and taking a hard look at electrical usage and specify what it's for, like lights, for example. I think we also have pretty clear direction. We need to come back and consider entertainment, both at a CUP and at a general level at a later date. And as the Mayor Pro Tem indicated, we can come back at a later date looking at some dining options in areas outside the village and potential use of parking lots and other space and what that looks like too. So Jeff, any clarity on any items that you're looking for?
No, I think, I wish we had something more finished at this point to show you. I think the next time we come back, we need to do that and have it be a much closer to a finished product. I think we've gotten a lot of feedback along the way from the council, both through public meetings and through other communications. So we understand that we need to come back with a program that is that meets everybody's expectations, and that the city is willing to hold the users and businesses accountable to when they get permits and permission from the city to use the public right of way. So that's clear.
So, Madam Mayor, can I add one other legal observation?
Yes, sir.
I want to make it abundantly clear we've made no gifts to anyone. We've invested for the community benefit in the downtown, and we have complied with the law in doing so.
Thank you. Yes. We have.
Just for the record. Yeah. Gift can be a term of art in law as well as a common use of nomenclature, and we've made no gifts as a matter of law.
Yes.
Appreciate the correction.
Jealous. Gary was just jealous. He didn't get a gift.
If I may.
He's in real estate. He can have a multitude of parklets and patios all over the place.
There you go.
Mr. Friedendahl, yes, you wanted to say something?
I do. I think we've all pretty much agreed on where we want to hopefully end up with this, but I have a proposal. Right now, just in the lighting discussion, we have several different types of lights. I would like to propose that we allow for an LED similar style. I'll just pick on Kara's Corner, for example. They seem to have a style that looks nice, works well. It's probably low energy use, and it's not solar. So that means they're plugged into a tree. They found the only tree with juice, but they got a tree. Well, I think we need to be consistent. So if we invite the people that want lighting, even if they're going to nicely tie it to their railing, use the same style of lighting and give them a tree so that it looks nice, it works well, and they're all getting the same advantage or not advantage, if you will, to do it right. And I'll even extend as far as a couple of businesses that don't have an agreement with us for a parklet, but have set up lights. Do it nicely and get rid of the posts in a concrete bucket of sand and give them a tree. We all know people have resources and they found those plugs. Others are being honest about it and they've chosen to not exercise that liberty. Should we extend that liberty while we're sorting this out to each of the parklet folks and help them as sort of an opportunity? We'll give you this, but give us back some of the things that you agreed to while we are sorting out the fine details.
Gary, do you want to be blunt again?
Sorry, go ahead, Mr. Kugel.
Was that a question for me?
I think so. I was just going to say, Mr. Kugel, did you have any response to that?
I guess I'm concerned about, on what basis I would be going out and cutting deals with individual businesses on what they could do and could not do. I'm sort of operating, if I did that sort of by the, sort of by tongue in cheek and seat of my pants on whatever on any given day I thought was the right thing to do, which is usually not a good thing for someone like me to do. So I'd prefer to hold off until we had some standards that we all had consensus and agreement on. the one thing I think I will do, and probably should have thought of doing maybe some time ago, is that, when we develop the current outdoor dining standards, as well as a host of other standards that were ultimately adopted under the zoning regulations that were created in the village, we actually had an ad hoc committee consisting of members from different bodies, including the bid. And I think that, for the bid's involvement, I think it's fair to ask, particularly since we have one restaurant member, if not two members, to maybe participate with staff on at least reviewing the regulations we come up with first, or providing us input and guidance on the regulations we come up with. So when we come back to the Planning Commission and Council, and even the bid initially, that we've gotten that buy-in, at least it's on some level, from a couple bid members as we're developing these standards.
That sounds good.
In the meantime, we've got 6-month-old homesteaders helping themselves, and we got other businesses doing it the right way. Maybe that's one of those fine-tuned adjustments we can make now while we're working through the rest of it.
So Karen, this is not on the staff report, but do you need a receive and file motion?
I don't think that they do, since we're just giving input, but Mr. Winder?
I move to receive and file. Just
Yeah,
to tie it up.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion to receive and file the report by Councilmember Alawas, second by Councilmember Friedendahl. I'll take a roll call vote. Councilmember Alawas,
Yes.
Councilmember Thompson,
Sorry about that. I was on mute. Yes.
thank you. Councilmember Friedendahl,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Boyer,
Yes.
and Mayor Davis.
Yes.
That passes 5-0. Thank you.
All right, thank you. That moves us to member staff closing comments. Anyone have any closing comments? Mr. Raymond, Mr. Winder, Mr. Lopez,
See you
anyone?
all in person next time,
Yes.
On the 12th.
April 12th.
All right.
Pants are required now.
Yes.
But
Yes.
you can wear your running slippers. Okay, very good. Then we will adjourn tonight's meeting in memory of Stan West, and we will adjourn at 10:16 p.m.